Pirate's Most Powerful Villain, Chapter 301-320. Chapter 0301 _ A Bunch of Immortals. Sabayati Archipelago was in chaos, and only Area 1 remained stable. At this moment, in a certain room of the auction venue, Chinyang was listening to Robin's return. "Lord Aizen, someone wants to save the showman at the door." "I know." Chinyang's face was calm, and he played with the bengu in his hand. 26 showmen, Crocodile and Gecko Moria were rescued, he knew from the beginning. The rescuer was the Shemale King, Ivankov, a cadre of the Revolutionary Army. "Going on a hunt?" Robin asked. "Don't worry, they won't get out of the Sabayati Archipelago." Chinyang chuckled lightly and said indifferently. "Now all the forces on the island are frantically looking for the blueprint of Hades. How could it be possible for people to leave the land of Sabayati? Moreover, outside the sea area, there is the Marine Fleet, which has more than 200 ships. It can be said that it is a net of heaven and earth. If you want to escape, unless you go to the sky and enter the sea, it is almost impossible. Compared to this, the current situation is still too calm. Add fire to them." Chinyang thought for a while and said, "Go get another fake Pluto blueprint." "Take another one." Robin looked surprised. Not long ago, Dream produced a 3-point fake Pluto blueprint, one of which was sold at auction, and 2 in stock. Although it is fake, in fact, it is only slightly different from the real drawing, and it is basically impossible to identify it. Unless someone can analyze and study from the material aspect. "You go get it." "Yes." Robin didn't know what Aizen was going to do, but it was an order, and she followed suit. Before long, she handed over the second blueprint to Chinyang. After letting her back down, Chinyang started to act. "Let the 10th Phantom Body Blue die guard at the auction, while the main body holds the blueprint and quietly leaves. The 3-star Phantom God has the ability to manifest phantoms. Everywhere he goes, he is filled with phantoms, and ordinary people cannot perceive his existence at all." After releasing his perception, Chinyang quickly found the 3 who escaped. Crocodile and Gecko Moria were very weak, and the 2 followed behind Ivankov, trying to escape towards Area 2. Above the sky, Chinyang looked at the 3 people below, Vivi Isho, and said, "Take advantage of you guys a little bit." As soon as the voice fell, his figure changed, becoming a man in a green coat. Below, Ivankov suddenly raised his hand. "Stop, I feel a bad breath." "What?" Gecko Moria frowned and said weakly. "Don't stop, run quickly, Dream will catch up soon." "Wait, there's a blockade ahead." Ivankov shook his head, but just after he finished speaking, there was a sudden gust of wind around him. This gust of wind was very strange, and it appeared suddenly without warning. The 3 of them turned pale, and all of a sudden their muscles tensed. "Is the dream coming?" Crocodile looked ugly. "Ha ha ha." A burst of low laughter came, and the 3 of them only felt a flower in front of them, and a man suddenly walked in front of them. The man was dressed in a green coat, imposing and mysterious. "Ivankov, long time no see." The man's voice was low, and half of his face emerged from under his cloak. "Dragon." Ivankov was stunned and said in surprise, "Why are you here?" "To get it." Chinyang turned his hand and revealed the blueprint of Hades. Seeing this, Crocodile and Gecko Moria's expressions changed slightly, and they looked at each other. "Pluto blueprint." Ivankov couldn't help but say, "Did you auction it off?" "No, you don't need to ask more about the details." Chinyang imitated Monkey D. Long's tone and said, "This can't be obtained by Marine. Now I'll give you a task to give this blueprint to Whitebeard." "What the hell is going on?" Ivankov was at a loss. Seeing the dragon here is mysterious enough. The dragon even gave him the blueprint and asked him to give it to Whitebeard, which is even more unpredictable. "Don't ask, time is limited, move fast." Chinyang left a sentence and turned to leave. After a few steps, the person disappeared like a breeze. "Wait!" Ivankov shouted, but there was no response. Not only did the person disappear, but even the previous breeze didn't seem to exist. What the hell? He frowned and shook his head. At the same time, above the sky, Chin-Yong stood up in the sky, looking down at the three of them. He Crocodile, Gecko Moria, how long can you two be silent? He didn't believe Crocodile and Moria wouldn't do it. The snatch is inevitable, the only problem is that the two are too weak to beat Ivankov. Then, what these two can do is very simple, find help. And doing so will inevitably leak the existence of this blueprint, and then it will be a war between all parties. Even if you don't do this and snatch it directly, it will cause riots, and it will still be exposed at that time. It can be said that as long as these two people want drawings, everything will develop as Chin-Yong expected. However, compared to this, what's the situation at Whitebeard? Chin-Yong thought to himself and turned his eyes to the west. Outside the first area, the Whitebeard pirates were surrounded by more than a dozen pirates. Among this group of people, the first group was the 5 people who were located in private room number 4 during the auction. These 5 people are all very old, the youngest one is probably over 50 years old, and the oldest one is nearly 70. At this time, Whitebeard laughed angrily, "So la la la, you little bastards with runny noses, how dare you appear in front of me?" Whitebeard. Among the 5, the eldest sneered and said, "HMPH, a coward who didn't even dare to fight Roger head-on, but now he has become the 4th emperor, and he is the most powerful one, which is really disappointing." Jozu, the captain of the 3rd division of the Whitebeard pirates, shouted angrily, "Who are you? What are you doing? We are just a bunch of immortals. This time, we are also entrusted by someone to stop you Whitebeard pirates here." Among the 5 old men, the only woman spoke. "This person is a ghost mother-in-law. You guys, as long as you stay here honestly, we won't do anything. After all, we're old and can't be as messy as before," she said very calmly. "Goo la la la, it's really boring." Whitebeard laughed. "Your purpose is also the blueprint of Hades. What's the use of that kind of thing? You don't have to know that." Another thin old man wearing a bamboo hat said weakly, "Whitebeard, if it's not necessary, we don't want to fight you. The 2.7-year-old family are all old, and our era has long passed. Only this time, please be honest." Hearing this, Whitebeard narrowed his eyes. Compared with the dozen or so pirate groups in front of him, he was more curious, what kind of power would be able to invite these 5 old men? "You know, the 5 old guys in front of you, in Roger's era, were all famous pirates. Even the only woman among the 5, the ghost mother-in-law, had a reward of 1.3 billion at the beginning. Of course, that was more than 10 years ago, and now, with 1/3 of the combat power of the original, it is not bad. Gee la la la, how many immortals can you stop me?" Whitebeard burst out laughing, jumping to his feet and punching his right hand. Earthquake. Boom. As if the space shattered, countless fine cracks spread out like spider webs. In an instant, the earth shattered, with a radius of 1,000 meters, and was smashed into countless pieces by the force of vibration in an instant. Chapter 0302.10 Heavenly Yaksha. Whitebeard pirates were sniped, and World War I broke out. This incident was beyond everyone's expectations. After the rest of the forces on the island got the news, they were first taken aback, and then they watched from the sidelines. At this moment, Whitebeard punched in anger, causing a big earthquake. Boom. In an instant, with a radius of 1,000 meters, the ground cracked, and a tyrannical vibration moved towards the dozen or so pirate groups that sniped at them. "Go," the old man wearing a hat said in a deep voice. As soon as the voice fell, the 5 old people started to work together. They didn't want to fight Whitebeard to the death. The biggest purpose was to hold the Whitebeard pirates back and focus on entanglement. At the same time, in Area 1, Chin-Yong withdrew his gaze. What is the purpose of someone looking for trouble with Whitebeard? Chin-Yong thought for a while, but for the time being he could only think that the other party had personal grudges, and secondly, it was to slow Whitebeard's footsteps to prevent the blueprint from falling into Whitebeard's hands. Fight! Keep fighting, the more trouble the better. Qin Yang chuckled, and then looked at the 3 Ivankovs below. The bait had already been spilled. Whether it can make a little waves in the fish pond depends on Crocodile's performance. Thinking of this, Qin Yang turned around and left. He did not return directly to the auction venue for auction 15, but walked towards Doflamming's location. Marine's Vice Admiral squads has been wiped out. 700 or 800 sailors were killed, including a rear admiral, and they were almost wiped out. The deaths of these people are very strange. The injuries en route cannot be seen as serious, but their souls have been swallowed up, and what lies on the ground is just an empty shell. Roar! Doflamingo lay on all fours on the ground and let out a burst of false roars. His shong mouth. Compared with before, the hole is bigger now. Not only that, but the spiritual pressure he carries has also become stronger. As if aware of something, Doflamingo turned around suddenly, a pair of tyrannical eyes, staring at the figure walking in the distance. Roar! With a roar, the dark red spiritual pressure condensed in his mouth, and then turned into a flash of light and shot out suddenly. Flicker! In the face of this blow, Qin Yang lacked even the intention of dodging, and let the opponent call. However, this sturdy phantom flash disappeared instantly before it touched Qin Yang's shong, as if it had never appeared before, and it seemed to be erased forever. Having absorbed thousands of souls, has it reached the big virtual level? Qin Yang raised his eyebrows and took a closer look. Void, a monster after the soul has fallen, characterized by white bones wrapped around the outside, and a void somewhere in the body. In addition to the ordinary emptiness, the emptiness will grow as it absorbs more souls, and it will enter the big emptiness level Q***U. Virtual Flash is a unique move of Daxu, which turns a high concentration of Reiatsu into a flash of light to attack the enemy. Slash. As soon as Doflamingo became virtual, he had the ability to flicker. At this moment, he absorbed thousands of souls, and he has completely entered the level of Big Virtual. However, the same Daxu is also divided into grades. The lower level is Killian, the intermediate level is Yachukas, and the upper level is Wastode. Judging by Reiatsu, Doflamingo is only a lower class in the Big Virtual world, and it can't even reach 1/10 of Aizen's level. However, most of the lower-level Daxu Killian have a common appearance, a black outer body, a white long-nosed mask, and a height of 40 or 50 meters. However, Doflamingo is different. Is it an anomaly in Killian? Qin Yang looked at Doflamingo and shook his head. Maybe it's because it directly changed from human to virtual. Or was it influenced by Bengyu? When he walked in front of Doflamingo, Qin Yang gently stretched out his right hand, and then pressed it sharply. Boom! In an instant, Doflamingo seemed to be beaten by an invisible force, and was directly beaten to the ground, unable to even lift his head. Roar! Doflamingo struggled angrily, his violent eyes staring at the human in front of him. Strength increased, but wisdom regressed to the level of beasts. With a chuckle, Qin Yang flipped his hand to take out the Bengyu and placed it on top of Doflamingo's head. Help you to break the face, after all, you are still very useful. Saying so, Qin Yang closed his eyes, and at the same time a force penetrated into the collapsing jade and guided it. Doflamingo seemed to sense something. He was motionless and prostrate on the ground. Suddenly, with a click, cracks appeared in the outer bone, and then the cracks spread rapidly. The next moment, bang! The white bone shattered, and the 10-meter-high body collapsed, turning into a spiritual child and dissipating. Huh! Doflamingo is back to what he was, a pink feather coat, fancy long johns, and sunglasses on the bridge of his nose. He let out a soothing sound, and then slowly stood up straight. This is the new power. He tried to squeeze his fist, feeling an explosive force. Fur so strong. However, I feel that my power has been sealed. He chuckled twice, then looked at Qin Yang, knelt down on one knee, and said, Lord Qin Emperor. If it wasn't for Lord Qin to take action, I'm afraid I would have really turned into a monster. Seeing this, Qin Yang said lightly, your power is sealed in your blade. Blade. Doflamingo was stunned, and then touched the dagger on his waist. The moment he touched it, Doflamingo immediately understood what this knife was. This is what he has, the incarnation of virtual power, the returning edge of the sword is the liberation of power. Not only that, he also realized a special space movement ability, Ring Zhuan. So it turns out, this is virtual. For there is actually such a way to become stronger. This is another power completely different from devil fruits. Doflamingo couldn't help laughing. For the first time, he felt that he could be strong at this level. He felt that if the current self beat the previous self, he could be hanged and beaten. It may not be able to reach the level of a dominant cadre, but it has full admiral level combat power. Don't be too busy to be happy. Qin Yang calmly said 800. Aizen promised you before that if you survive, I will grant you the title of 10 Blades. I agree with this, Doflamingo. I will grant you the title Aizen's title of Broken Army 10 Blades. You are number 10 Kayusha. Yes. Although you are 10 Blades, your combat power is too weak compared to the top 10 Blades. Qin Yang shook his head. The first 10 Blades. Doflamingo's heart moved. You don't need to know who it is. The first few 10 Blades have a combat power similar to that of the dominant cadre. You are still far behind. Qin Yang said nonsense casually, and said solemnly, now that you have just acquired new power, I will give you a task. Hearing this, Doflamingo was shocked. Unexpectedly, in addition to the dominant cadres, there is also a face-breaking army, among which the top level has a combat power close to that of the dominant cadres. Too terrifying. How much background and trump card does the dream have? Taking a deep breath, Doflamingo said more and more respectfully, please instruct Emperor Qin. The forces on the island who came to participate in the auction this time have carried devil fruits to some extent. As long as they fight each other and kill red eyes, devil fruits will be available everywhere. After a pause, Qin Yang said in a vague tone, do you know how to do it? For anyway, are they making them suspicious of each other and attacking each other? Doflamingo gave a weird laugh, leave it to me. With that said, he got up quickly, obeyed the instructions, and began to plan how to stir up the situation. Chapter 0303 _ The Demon King of Terror reappears. Second more tilde the title of Doflamingo, there are generally 3, High Rogue, Heavenly Yaksha, Joker, no High Yaksha, there is a small error at the end of the last chapter, sorry. By the way, announce the group number again, 230,131,998. Let Doflamingo go out to do things, and Qin Yang will ignore it for the time being. Doflamingo is still very useful, has a brain, and has a certain amount of combat power, otherwise Qin Yang would not purposely help him strengthen his strength and break his face. Speaking of which, it's obviously broken, but there is no hollow hole in Doflamingo's chest. This is not a real hollow. Qin Yang pondered and whispered to himself, it should be a product between the human and the virtual, or a mixture of the human and the virtual. No matter which one it is, it doesn't matter. Generally speaking, the experiment is still successful. Doflamingo, the little white mouse, can't see any problems for the time being, and his strength has also been enhanced. Even in this world, Bengyu's ability has not changed, so you can use it with confidence. Thinking of this, Qin Yang collected the collapsed jade and walked back to the auction venue. Just as he took a step, a golden flash was suddenly projected from the horizon. Whoosh! The golden light fell to the ground and quickly condensed into the figure of Kizaru. As soon as he appeared, he saw marine corpses all over the ground, 700 or 800, a whole vice admiral force, almost wiped out. Qin Emperor. Kizaru frowned, you did it. Yellow Monkey, Qin Yang glanced at him, you were late. What? Kizaru's heart froze, but he didn't make a move. He had previously received a report from Momonga Vice Admiral, and he rushed over immediately. It was less than 10 minutes before the group was destroyed. The moment I saw Emperor Qin, I subconsciously thought it was this person who did it, but then I thought about how powerful Emperor Qin was. How could he attack a vice admiral army? Opportunity for Momonga to contact him. I heard a monster here, Kizaru said solemnly. Indeed, it has already run away. He he he. Qinyang chuckled lightly. You ask for more happiness. That monster is not weak. As he said that, he took a step forward, and the figure disappeared in an instant. Kizaru's face was ugly, and he always felt that this monster had something to do with fantasy, otherwise how could Emperor Qin appear here? However, Dream is so powerful now that he does not dare to provoke the other party, and he does not dare to question him face to face. 10 rulers, like a shadow, shrouded Marine's head. Got to find Momonga first. That thought in mind, Kizaru moved quickly. Not to mention his actions, Qinyang quickly returned to the auction. He threw Bengyu to Aizen, and then his body moved, turned into a streamer, and immersed in Aizen's body. The experiment was successful. Next, let's try the others. Robin. Qinyang played with it for a while, and finally merged Bengyu into his body. Don't worry about it, talk about it later. But Marine is too quiet, he must be planning something. The blueprint can't fall into their hands, and it can't make them too stable. It's a pity that the rest power. I will detour when first see Marine, and I will not fight with Marine head on. It seems that I can only go out in person. Quote. Marine is the most special of all the forces this time, and no one dares to provoke them. After all, the world government is standing behind them. With Sengoku's mind, it was impossible to imagine that they would inevitably wait until the war spreads and the major forces consume each other before taking action. Marine definitely wanted to be a fisherman, but Qinyang felt that he couldn't let Marine be too comfortable. It doesn't matter who gets the fake drawings, it just can't be given to Marine. Thinking of this, Qinyang's thoughts moved, and suddenly, a ray of black air overflowed and quickly turned into the appearance of a big devil. The ruler of the abyss, the great demon king of fear. The great demon king has 2 horns on his head and 2 wings on his back. He has the body of a demon king and is extremely strong, and it contains explosive power. I'm going to crush Marine. The big devil grinned Isho, the demon wings slammed violently, and the man has quickly flown out. The fake Hades drawings can be given to anyone, but not Marine. Because Marine has a scientist Baker Punk, even if it is a fake blueprint, the ghost knows whether this person can find clues from it, and then create a war weapon similar to the Pluto battleship. Just hold them back, don't let them idle, and have time to look for blueprints. Just like someone wanted to hold Whitebeard in the footsteps, Dream wanted to suppress Marine. It's all about balance. If the high-end players are taken out, isn't the next stage of fighting for hegemony in the fish pond? Anyone has a chance. Sabayati Archipelago, Area 69. Area of number 60 to number 69, there are marine stations and government entrances and exits. At this moment, in Area 69, almost all the high-end combat power of Marine headquarters is gathered here. In a base, in the office, Sengoku listened to the reports of his subordinates. Kizaru Admiral has found Momonga Vice Admiral. Momonga Vice Admiral is still in a coma. According to what he said before the coma, it is a white monster. Momonga Vice Admiral's troops have been wiped out. The Whitebeard pirates were besieged by more than a dozen pirates. According to speculation, these dozen pirates should come from several pirate alliances. Their common enemy is Whitebeard. They want to take the Whitebeard pirates, force out the Sabayati archipelago to prevent the drawings from falling into Whitebeard's hands. The Kaido pirates are currently missing and seem to be hiding and want to strike at a critical moment. Outside the sea area of Sabayati archipelago, there was a piece of information that a pirate ship broke through the defense net and entered Sabayati archipelago. The person who shot it is suspected to be the former Red Earl. The Otis family, one of the top 10 families, and their mafia, have had a war with the Vinsmoke family, which has not yet subsided. One piece of information came out, and all the senior Marines present here were ugly. It turned out to be the Scarlet Earl. Sengoku hummed after a while. When Dream attacked the big prison, I thought he was dead, but I didn't expect to escape. Redfield, Suru Vice Admiral held his forehead and said with a headache, another troublesome character. These remnants of the previous era appeared one after another. Speaking of which, outside the sea, Commander Kong leads the 240 warships, and he has a grudge with the Red Earl. Garp scratched his head. He broke in. With Kong leading the combined fleet, it's unbelievable that people can break in. A group of Marine executives looked at each other, all feeling troubled. The scene was too big for them to be suppressed by Marine at all. Only when they fought each other would Marine have a chance. I am afraid that Dream will do something. Sengoku was a little worried, and his right eye kept twitching. Suddenly, a huge coercion came. Boom. In the office, the faces of several people present changed slightly and all stood up. This breath. Sengoku's eyes widened, showing an incredible look. Sure enough, a shout resounded. Marine, I'm the Dreadlord. Get out and die. Chapter 0304 _ The Great Demon King's Blood Rebirth. Marine, I'm the Dreadlord. Get out and die. The roar sounded, alarming all the Marines in the base. The alarm sounded, and 100-strong army quickly moved towards the entrance of the base. In the office, the expressions of all the senior executives changed slightly, and they looked at each other with incredible expressions. Abyss Lord. Sengoku widened his eyes and gritted his teeth. This guy disappeared for 2 or 3 months, but I didn't expect to suddenly appear today. One of the 10 masters of fantasy, Suru Vice Admiral, frowned deeply. Why are you eyeing us, Marine? But it's still, this time. Garp said solemnly, could it be that the Dream is behind this? Abyss Master, the Dread Demon Lord, is no longer a secret to Marine. It was rumored that the world was going to be destroyed, but there has been no action, so Sengoku and others have relaxed a lot, just using the intelligence department to inquire about information. I didn't expect it to appear at such a time, as if I saw an opportunity. Suddenly, Sengoku thought of something, his expression froze, and he hurried away. Let's go. I'll meet him for a while. It's the first time I've encountered him in reality. Several people quickly left the office, then walked out of the base, and came to a school ground in front of Marine Base. Just as soon as they arrived here, Sengoku and the others saw a group of Marines lying on the ground, all looking terrified and mentally abnormal. What's more, he was so frightened that he twitched and was in a trance. What happened? Sengoku gritted his teeth and said, how long has it been? These are the elites of the headquarters. Suru Vice Admiral took a deep breath and looked up. Are you the Lord of the Abyss? In midair, an evil man with 2 horns on his head and 2 wings on his back flew into the air. Chinyong folded his arms around his chest, grinned Isho, and said, finally, Marine. I thought you would just send a group of cannon fodder. The Great Demon King of Fear. Sengoku snorted angrily and took a step forward, his whole body radiating golden light, instantly turning into a big Buddha. What are you here for? He. Chinyong chuckled and said, long time no see, I forgot what I said so quickly. I am the Demon King of the world, and I am here to spread fear. Simply put, you Marines are too annoying. For this, Sengoku and the others were immediately angry. Suru Vice Admiral couldn't help shaking his head and said, I have also seen other masters of fantasy. The Archangel is holy, the Sea Dragon is proud, the Lich King is cruel, but you, the Great Devil, you are pure evil, and you only exist in front of you. I can feel the chill to the bone. Suru, don't panic. Garp laughed Isho, I'll give you a try. As he said that, he stepped out 1 step, and the whole person instantly burst into high speed. Void, Garp easily rushed in front of Chinyong, and at the same time a conqueror haki burst out, as if to intimidate everything. Really, I'm still so impulsive. Suru Vice Admiral shook his head when he saw this. Sengoku, my ability should be useful to deal with this guy. I'll try to wash away the evil, in his heart. Well, I'll give you a chance. Sengoku nodded, then found the opportunity and sent a palm towards Chinyang. Big Buddha palm. Facing the siege, Chinyang disdained Isho, his wings fluttered, and he quickly climbed the height, dodging Garp's heavy punch and Sengoku's Buddha's palm. It's the first time I've played against you in reality. Chinyang opened his arms, as if embracing the world. He don't blame me for being rude. Fear the scales. Boom. A bell rang in everyone's ears. The next moment, a huge scale phantom appeared behind Chinyang out of thin air. Both ends of the scale swayed up and down, and a force of fear blessed him. Immediately afterwards, Chinyang's blood burned wildly, and his whole body seemed to be on fire. Blood furnace. Woohoo! The flaming blood and blood, like flames, shot straight into the sky. What kind of power is this? Garp was stunned. His physique, in an instant, has increased several times. Ha ha ha, be fearful. Chinyang ha ha Isho. His body moved. He immediately approached Garp, and then his right palm formed a fist and slammed it out. Seeing this, Garp did not retreat but advanced, and went head to head. Eat the old man's punch. Armament hardening. In an instant, the right fist was plated with a layer of black, which collided with Chinyang's blow. Boom. The space oscillated, and the shock waves swept through. Under the collision of the two forces, the electric light flickered, as if the particle structure had been knocked down. What a strong armament. Chinyang raised his eyebrows and was surprised. He was not unfamiliar with Garp. He had fought against him when he was in the state of Sea Dragon, but at that time, the opponent's armament was obviously not as strong as he was in front of him. Like him, Garp was surprised. Great brute force. No haki whatsoever, just brute force. This guy is scarier than Kaido's physique. When the two fought, they were both forced to retreat. At this moment, Sengoku jumped up, and the golden Buddha palm in his right hand slapped violently. When this palm was shot, the golden light flourished, detached from the body, and condensed a big palm directly in the air. That palm seems to be compassionate, and it seems to transcend evil. Big bergamot. Boom. A palm fell from the sky and lay directly on Chinyang's body. Huh, why are you getting stronger? Chinyang was stunned, and he was knocked down from the sky by a blow. At this moment, Suru Vice Admiral approached quickly. She seemed to have expected this scene. The moment Chinyang was knocked down, his right arm stretched out and swept away. Boom. I'll help you wash up. Suru Vice Admiral's face was calm. He spoke in a low voice, then with a soft drink, his right arm swept across Chinyang's chest and abdomen. The next moment, Chinyang's body changed, lost his body, and his strength subsided. The whole person seemed to have fallen from three-dimensional to two-dimensional, turning into a shiny dress. I'm sorry, Great Demon King, I am the one who washes the fruit. Suru Vice Admiral said softly, how is it? Do you feel that the evil thoughts in your heart have faded? Garp and Sengoku quickly approached, protecting her behind. Several people looked towards the front. Chinyang turned into a piece of clothes and fell to the ground softly. He. The laughter sounded, and Chinyang's tone was slightly praised. Well done. The ability to wash fruit is a bit interesting, and it can actually touch the rules. The life form of the person who has been washed will disappear, and the power will not be activated, and it will become a piece of clothing. Tell me, did dreams send you here? Sengoku said solemnly. You think the three of you can beat me? Don't be too arrogant. Chinyang dismissed, blow yourself up. Boom. There was a sudden explosion, and the manic force swept away. Sengoku and the others changed drastically, and they stepped back again and again, retreating hundreds of meters before finally avoiding the aftermath of the explosion. And when the aftermath dissipated, the entire school field in front had been razed to the ground, and a deep crater appeared in the center. Did he die? Suru Vice Admiral murmured, blow up. How did you do it? No, there is still aura. Garp's expression was solemn, don't say death, his aura is stronger. Suddenly, Qin Yang's voice sounded again. Have you ever seen rebirth from a drop of blood? The voice came out of nowhere, and no one could figure out the exact location. But in the front position, in a pool of blood, a drop of blood suddenly emitted black gas, and then rapidly expanded. It was too late to see exactly what happened. When several people came back to their senses, Qin Yang had already appeared again. He. Qin Yang put his shoulders on the activist and joked, you three still want to suppress me? Tell me directly, I can be reborn from a drop of blood. As long as there is any drop of blood, I will not die. Rebirth from a drop of blood. What a monster. Worse than Logia's fluid. Just to play with you for a while. Qin Yang said playfully, slowly stretched out his right hand and spread his fingers. This is the real fear scales. Call. A force of fear spread out and engulfed the three of Sengoku in an instant. In an instant, the world changed, and monsters were sentient beings. Chapter 0305 _ at least one of the 4 emperors is dispatched. First update _ sorry, the bank called me in the morning, I went to deal with it, but I haven't finished it yet, I have to go to the afternoon. This is the real fear scales. Call. The yin wind was blowing, with Qin Yang as the center, a bone-piercing cold wind blew outward. Sengoku, who were the first to bear the brunt, all felt a chill in their bodies, and they felt terrified. This fear was born from the hearts of the three, and was then absorbed by Qin Yang. The next moment, as if the world has changed, all monsters and creatures. Sengoku only felt that the presence of the great demon king of fear in front of him was rapidly increasing, like a lower-level creature in the food chain facing a higher-level creature. What kind of power is this? Sengoku said dignifiedly. As expected of Marine's top combat power, these fear powers are 100 times better than ordinary Marines. Qin Yang haha, Isho, and immediately bullied him when he moved his footsteps. It's getting faster. Garp's eyes narrowed, and he went head-to-head and punched away. Bone fist. His right fist was dyed black. At its peak, he could directly smash an iceberg with one punch, but at this moment, for some reason, the moment he punched, his body seemed to be stiff from fear, and the strength of the punch was rapidly declining. The scales are tilting in my favor, Garp, your fists aren't enough. Qin Yang stretched out his right palm and immediately grabbed it firmly. Seeing this, Garp's complexion changed drastically, and he suddenly felt that his state was very strange. He punched out and seemed powerless, but the opponent's restraint was difficult to break free. What's going on here? Garp's inner fear grew stronger and stronger, and before he could dodge, Qin Yang yanked him. His body approached the other side uncontrollably. At the same time, Qin Yang's right palm had loosened his fist and quickly pressed it on his face. A soft drink, Qin Yang pressed Garp's head and smashed it into the ground. Boom! Garp's head shook, and a trace of blood spit out from his mouth. He only felt pain all over his body, as if under the scale of fear, the damage he suffered had been magnified 10 times, or even dozens of times. Garp! Sengoku's eyes widened, his eyes spitting fire, you bastard! In the roar, Sengoku shot furiously, and the fist of the Golden Buddha, like lightning, hit Qin Yang. Boom! Qin Yang raised his hand to block, but he was still repelled by a shock wave dozens of meters. Sengoku's power was unforgiving, and in a single leap, he had already jumped above Qin Yang, and his raised right palm suddenly slapped it. Buddha shock. Boom! A white light mask appeared, like an enchantment covering a circle of space around Qin Yang. Hash! The next moment, a tyrannical shockwave was generated from the inside of the hood, as if it could directly penetrate the human body. FFW_ is less than or equal to _. Qin Yang raised his eyebrows and grinned, you actually have resistance to the scale of fear, and the ability of the Buddha-shaped fruit really restrains the evil forces a bit. The 9-tailed demon fox was restrained a bit at the beginning, but the current scale of fear was also restrained a little bit. However, Qin Yang was completely right. He crossed his hands and lifted up, directly bearing the impact of this time. The body of the devil. In an instant, Qin Yang's body strengthened rapidly, like a meteorite from the sky, invincible. The shock wave fell, directly shattering the ground, but it failed to hurt Qin Yang in the slightest. What? Sengoku's eyes widened with disbelief. This is the shock of the Buddha, the shock wave, and even the power of Whitebeard's vibration, can wipe out the power in an instant. Now directly hit the great demon king of fear, let alone hurt the opponent, even the opponent's skin can't penetrate into it. What monster! He gritted his teeth. The defense is still above Kaido, and it has the ability to regenerate from a drop of blood, so it can't be killed at all. It can't be killed, it can only be sealed. Of this, Sengoku shouted, Kuzan. A roar resounded, and the next moment, the surrounding air was filled with cold air, and the sound of clicking sounded. I saw that in the extreme distance, the earth was wrapped in solid ice, and the power of frost spread rapidly, as if to freeze the entire marine base. Ice Age. Qin Yang glanced. Do you think I don't know that you admirals are hiding aside? His wings fluttered and he flew straight into the sky. In the blink of an eye, Qin Yang flew over Sengoku's head and hung upside down. Go down. Boom. The golden Buddha is like a meteor, falling directly from the sky, banging, and smashing into the huge pit in the school grounds. I am the great demon lord of fear marine, let's go together. Not to mention that Qin Yang suppressed marine in Area 69, and on the other side, the intersection of Area 1 and Area 2. Along the river, the three parties are hostile to each other. Phoenix Marco turned into a blue bird, hovering constantly in midair. That blind man over there, how about we join forces to deal with the gecko pirates? Hearing this, Isho remained calm. The blueprints cannot flow in, nor can they be handed over to you Whitebeard pirates. I'm sorry, I can't agree. Our Whitebeard pirates, not to get the blueprints, but to prevent the blueprints from entering Marine's hands. Marco said solemnly. Dad is not interested in blueprints, I just don't want anyone to get them to deal with our Whitebeard pirates. I can promise you that after getting the blueprint, I will burn it on the spot. Quote. I see as expected of Whitebeard, I'll agree to that. Blind Isho nodded. The two stood on a united front. Gecko Sluky's face was ashen, and he snorted angrily. You two bastards, you think you've got me. Don't look down on people. The man in the peaked cap beside him looked gloomy. He tried to escape several times, but was stopped. Now there's another Phoenix, Marco, and it's even harder to get away. Thinking of this, he hurriedly lowered his voice and said, Shadow Demon. Please take action. As long as I guarantee my escape, I can promise you that I am willing to pay the price of 5 more fruits. He now owes fantastic 75 pieces, plus 5 pieces, that is 80 pieces of fruit. He can't guarantee that the Alliance really has so many, but now he has to make such a promise, otherwise he will be arrested by the two in front of him sooner or later. However, there was no response. Seeing that the two phoenixes were about to start, the man in the peaked cap immediately became anxious. 10. If I die, you won't get anything. He. A low laughter sounded, and the next moment, a wisp of black smoke floated out and quickly condensed into a dark shadow. At the risk of being punished by Lord Qin 3.9, I made an exception. The shadow demon old god was there, looking at the blue bird in the sky. Marco, do you want to die? If you don't want to die, just step back. Seeing this, Marco's face changed slightly. Dream Shadow Demon. HMPH, you're not a combatant, and you still want to stop me. No matter what, I'm going to catch this group of people. I'm sorry, it seems you have misunderstood me. Shadow Demon shook his head, black smoke billowing all over his body. I'm just a dreamy little errand. Even so, I'm the only one among all the ordinary members, including the cadres, who has unlocked the 5-layer seal. 5 layers of seals. Marco's pupils shrank, his heart stunned. As soon as the dreamy seal was mentioned, of course he knew that even the nine-tailed demon fox had only 3 layers of seals. And the shadow demon in front of him actually claimed to be a 5-layer seal. If you want to fight me, please dispatch at least one of the 4 emperors. Chapter 0306_cut him, the line of death. Second update Gui Blade. You thought about it for a long time, and it really was named Waste. Marco was like a formidable enemy, staring solemnly at the shadow demon that suddenly appeared. He didn't know what the 5-layer seal was, but the 9-tailed demon fox with the 3-layer seal easily defeated him. Thinking of this, Marco gritted his teeth and said, "You guys don't keep your promises. This place is not within the number 1 area, so you actually interfered in the blueprint competition. Watch your words." Shadow Demon said calmly, "I only appeared at the risk of being punished by Lord Qin Emperor. If you can take out 10 fruits, I will retreat immediately." At the auction at that time, Dream promised that as long as they didn't do it in Area 1, they wouldn't care. Therefore, on this point, Shadow Demon didn't make any excuses, and didn't bother to make excuses. 10 fruits is the price he paid for hiring me. As long as you pay a higher price, of course I don't mind your hands. Bastard, you are taking advantage of the fire and dreaming. Marco was furious. He. Shadow Demon chuckled twice and said, "Instead of caring about the blueprints, I think you should hurry back to Whitebeard's place." He was besieged by more than 15 pirate groups. Hearing this, Marco's face sank. "No, this is my mission. Now that I have discovered the whereabouts of the blueprint, I will not leave easily. There are naturally other companions guarding my father's place. Stop talking nonsense, I will take a look. What qualifications do you have to stop me after you have unlocked the 5-layer seal?" As he spoke, he spread his wings and swooped towards the Shadow Demon. Shadow demons are immune to physical attacks, therefore, Marco has no intention of entanglement, just wants to subdue the man in the peaked cap as soon as possible. Seeing this, the Shadow Demon remained motionless, standing on the spot, letting the other party approach. And just as Marco got close to the ground and his shadow was reflected on the ground, the Shadow Demon disappeared. He disappeared suddenly, and the next moment, he flashed behind Marco. What? Marco's face changed greatly. "It's not a matter of speed, it's teleportation." "Congratulations, you guessed it right, the Shadow Doll." As soon as the voice fell, the Shadow Demon figure disappeared into the shadow. In an instant, Marco's body shook, and he stopped abruptly. He was shocked to find that he could no longer move, and his body was no longer under his control, as if there was an invisible force that bound him. "Impossible, you're controlling me," he yelled in shock. This kind of ability to ignore everything, sneak directly into the shadow of the object, and manipulate the object is simply an incomprehensible existence. No, there can be no incomprehensible ability in the world. Marco struggles frantically to regain control. However, his efforts were of little use. He. The Shadow Demon's laughter sounded directly in his mind. "I don't really care. If you want to catch him, please feel free to do what you want. The reason why I stop you is only because of the reward of 10 fruits." "What did you say?" Marco frowned. "I said, you just need to stand still. All I want to protect is the safety of this man's life. As for the drawings, it's none of my business." Shadow Demon haha isho, controlling Doflamingo, pretending to be fighting over body control. Previously, he promised the man in the peaked cap, but only promised to escort the other party to leave safely. This safety does not include the safety of drawings. How could he protect the drawings? The original purpose of the dream is to let the drawings flow out, and the more people compete for an appointment. The Shadow Demon only protects the blueprint because his brain is broken. Even now, he is just pretending, waiting for the blind Isho to kill all the gecko pirates. It's really elusive. A motionless Isho, but at this moment fell a knife. What is the purpose of your dreams? Maybe because he couldn't see it, he could detect something strange. Not to mention the stalemate here, in Area 1, a place not far from Area 2. This is a meadow. At this moment, the three crocodile looked at the figure that appeared in front of them as if they were facing an enemy. It was a man in a pink feather coat with a dagger hanging from his waist. The man took 28 steps, and there was a small half-bone mask on his cheek. Doflamingo, Crocodile looked at each other solemnly. Damn it. Moria's face was very ugly. It's coming so soon. Shichibukai. Ivankov was relatively calm, but had a serious expression on his face. For Don Quixote Doflamingo. No, he's dead. The man you know, is dead. I'm the new heavenly Yaksha, the 10 Blades. Number 10. Doflamingo laughed strangely and stared at Ivankov firmly. Don't worry, I'm not here to hunt down the two of you. My purpose is just to recover the blueprint. Of course, this is just talk. He knows the purpose of the dream, and he also knows what he wants to do. It's a very simple thing, just exposing the existence of the blueprint. Then the easiest way is for him to hunt down these 3 people and let them escape as soon as possible, and it is easy to attract attention at that time. Now the major forces are keeping an eye on it. Once there is trouble, it is all sharks who smell the fishy smell and will swarm. And hearing his words, Ivankov's expression suddenly turned bad. Croc boy, I didn't expect it's time for you to repay your kindness so soon, hip-hop. What? The blueprint was given to me by the dragon, 133. I have to follow the instructions and give it to Whitebeard. You help me block him, hip-hop. Ivankov's eyes widened and he blinked sharply. Death blink. Blinking at a high speed, it happened dozens of times in an instant, and suddenly, an explosion storm suddenly set off. This wind and waves did not hit Doflamingo, but used the reverse thrust, which instantly made Ivankov flee dozens of meters. Damn, he ran away. Moria hated, this guy is really unreliable. Fur. Doflamingo's laughter sounded. He was not in a hurry at all, but slowly pulled out the blade around his waist. I just got a new power, and I just tried a few of you. I'm sorry, 2 Shichibukai colleagues, please die. Return to the blade cut him, the line of death. The moment the chant fell, a spiritual pressure rose into the sky. Boom. The liberation of the sword is the liberation of power. Doflamingo's pink feather coat was flying rapidly, and the spiritual pressure all over his body soared, and the spiritual pressure was like a thread, entwining each other, and gradually condensed into 6 strands. These 6 arm-thick silk threads are golden yellow and grow on the back, like the wings of a god, fluttering and fluttering. Doflamingo floated into the air and stood in the air. This is the power. This is the power bestowed by the Emperor Qin. Furufu run away. Chapter 0307_ The war is imminent. First make a cup of black tea. For escape as much as you like. Doflamingo volleyed into the air, laughing wildly. He was immersed in the new power, completely unable to extricate himself. This is different from the power of devil fruit, more different from hockey, fighting technique, but the ability from the depths of the soul. 6 long golden feathers fluttered gently like silk. The wings are composed of countless invisible spiritual threads, and his ability to return to the blade is born out of the thread fruit. Therefore, at this moment, it is handy to use, and you can master it all at once. Crocodile below, but their eyes widened, full of disbelief. Damn it, what kind of trick is this? Moria's face darkened, then without thinking, she turned and ran. Crocodile, you go try him. After he finished speaking, he slid away and ran away quickly. Originally, he was tied to a shelf and exposed to the sun for 2 months, but at this moment, his actions are extremely fast, and it is obvious that the human potential has exploded. Seeing this, Crocodile's expression changed. Doflamingo, are you willing to be a dream minion? The lackey. Doflamingo was not angry, but couldn't help laughing. For Golden Lion is the lackey. I have successfully joined the dream, a member of the periphery. You don't understand the horror of the dream at all. Do you think that the 10 major rulers are all? No, far from it. what you see is just a corner of iceberg. Quote. Eisen used a piece of collapsing jade to easily give him such power, which excited him and shocked him at the same time. This is the means of God. Not to mention, even Eisen himself admitted that as long as Emperor Qin wanted to, he could kill everyone in the dream by himself. That is above God, a completely incomprehensible existence. With such thick thighs, as an ambitious and scheming person, how could Doflamingo not seize the opportunity? Forget it, tell you, you can't understand. Anyway, soon, we will enter a new era of one emperor's domination. Doflamingo shook his head and stretched out a finger. This finger points to the air, and suddenly there is a dark red spiritual power gathering. The huge spiritual power compressed, forming a flash, and then suddenly shot towards Crocodile. Virtual flash. Crocodile looked horrified, and before he had time to think about it, his whole body quickly became fluid. Boom. Moria, who had already run a long distance, was affected by this blow. A big explosion sounded, and the earth was wiped away. The Sabayati archipelago is made up of the roots of a number of alchemy mangroves. The roots are located in a very shallow position under the ground. At this moment, a phantom flashed past, the ground was wiped away in an instant, the roots of the tree were pierced, and the sea below was exposed. Crash. The sea rises and falls like rain. Impossible. This guy suddenly became so strong. Gecko Moria looked sluggish. At the critical moment, he avoided the virtual flash, but was swept away by the aftermath, so the injury was not serious. At this time, seeing the destructive power of the blow, he was even more frightened, got up quickly, and fled away. Shadow Mage. His shadow broke away from the ground, like a living thing, blocking in front of Doflamingo. Fur. Doflamingo chuckled twice, but he didn't immediately chase after him. Instead, he slowly flapped his 6 wings and flew over slowly. Run away as much as you like. While chasing away, Doflamingo flicked his fingers. Cut him, the line of death. Whoosh whoosh. The 6 wings behind it emit golden light, and then fly out countless golden threads. These silk threads cut iron like mud, and from the left and right sides, like 2 big hands, slapped the Shadow Mage fiercely. Boom. In an instant, the Shadow Mage was cut into countless pieces. No one knows how many times it has been cut as a shadow at that moment. After destroying the Shadow Mage, these threads suddenly dispersed, like countless tentacles, spreading outward. Found it. Suddenly, Doflamingo's eyes flashed, and then he accelerated instantly. At the same time, Ivankov kept running, cursing. Damn, there are blockades everywhere. Area 1 is fenced off. As long as you go out, you will be targeted immediately. I bring the blueprints that will definitely cause trouble, hip-hop. Saying that, Ivankov frowned suddenly, and he raised his right hand sharply. I don't know when, on top of his right hand, a golden thread has been holding him by Chan Rao. Seeing this scene, Ivankov's breathing stopped. Oops. He had a bad hunch, but it came true in the next second. I saw a figure in front of me flashing, and Doflamingo had already blocked it. Fur, you can't escape. His old god was present, full of extravagance, and shouted loudly, hand over the blueprints. You. Ivankov's face darkened, I fought with you. Suddenly, he stretched out his 5 fingers, and when they were close together, the nails suddenly became sharp, and the next moment, they stabbed at his head. Epiliofacial growth hormone. With a loud roar, his face suddenly doubled and became even bigger. Ha ha ha, when you see my face, you should be scared too. Hip hop. Seeing this, Doflamingo narrowed his eyes and was speechless for a while. Idiot. Not interested in investigating whether the other party is not good, he snorted coldly, spread his 5 fingers, and suddenly waved a claw. 5-color line. It was as if 5 sharp blades slashed towards each other. Death blink. Ivankov didn't rush, and with a wink, he directly broke the 5-color line, and at the same time turned around and continued to escape. "Never mind, rush out," he shouted inwardly, "find Whitebeard first. The bastard, the dragon, gave me such a task." Isho, who had succeeded in Doflamingo's conspiracy, quickly retreated and pretended to be annoyed. "Don't try to run, hand me the drawings." Saying that, he quickly chased after him. Boom boom boom. The two chased and fled, causing a commotion along the way. This was quickly targeted by various forces, and one of the two was trying to escape, and the other pretended to be chasing after life, which made people even more concerned. Soon, the information about the blueprint was known. That person has a blueprint in his hand. What Doflamingo said can't be wrong. Just, why is Dream going to get it back? Could it be that the deal failed? Not paying enough fruit. Sure, 90 fruits, who can take out so many at one time? Not even Marine. Notify the boss, prepare to intercept, as soon as possible. All forces have begun to act. It was originally just a small-scale battle, but at this moment, all the forces on the island were suddenly aroused. War is imminent. During the auction, Chin Yong sat quietly. Aside, Nicole Robin quietly poured tea. It has finally begun. Holding up the teacup, Chin Yong took a sip and said with a chuckle, "The world war is imminent. In short, let's make a cup of black tea first." Chapter 0308-Supreme Sword, Dao Shui Lakey. The war is imminent, anyway, let's make a cup of black tea first. Chin Yong sat upright, lifted the teacup gently, and took a sip. Nicole Robin stood by, speechless for a while. When I was enjoying tea and drinking here, the outside world was already in chaos. 2. On a wooden bridge, Ivankov was forced to a stop. The rear is the pursuit from the Dream, Shichibukai Doflamingo, and the front is a group of pirates. I'm the captain of the Iron Pirates, Iron Man. The man was burly, over 2.45 meters tall, with long hands and feet, slightly stooped, and a pair of big hands that seemed to be able to directly touch the ground. "You should be the Shemale King, Ivankov," Captain Steele sneered. "Hand over the blueprints." Iron Pirates. Never heard of it. Ivankov was very anxious in his heart, but his face remained calm. "You bastard, get out of the way." Hell blink. Above the huge head, the eyes widened, and when the words fell, they blinked dozens of times in an instant. Boom. The explosive wind set off by the high-speed blink. This move is more powerful than the previous, Death Blink, and it is an upgraded version. HMPH027, Iron Will. The captain snorted coldly, stepped away, and at the same time his eyes narrowed, and in an instant, the whole person's skin was stained with golden color and turned into an Iron Man. The blasting wind hit his mouth, but it only forced him back 3 steps. Ha 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 tickle, he laughed loudly and said, "I am a person with the ability of the Iron Fruit. Iron Man, I advise you, hurry up and take the picture." Boom. Suddenly, a dark shadow fell from the sky. It was a giant, more than 30 meters tall, covered in armor, and when he fell, he stepped on the Iron Man into the ground. Ivankov opened his mouth wide, stunned for a while. Sea Giant, Panda Jin. The Shemale King. The armored giant's eyes were cold, and after stepping on the Iron Man with one foot, he reached out and grabbed Ivankov. "Since you know me, hand over the blueprint. Don't resist. Our Bajan Alliance will block this place soon." Quote. The Bajan Alliance is an alliance of 2 top pirate groups, each with more than a dozen pirate groups. The 2 big pirates are the Giant Golden Pirates, and the Israel Pirates. The captain of the Giant Golden Pirates, Sea Giant, Panda Jin, is a giant in his own right, and his bounty is as high as 999 million. He was once the ace warrior of a giant family. Of course Ivankov knew the other party. Her Kamabaka kingdom had been attacked by the other party before. "You bastard dare to appear in front of me." Ivankov was exasperated and narrowed his eyes. Seeing that the giant's hand was about to be caught, suddenly, a dark green slash swept across from the side. Whoosh! The slash fell directly on the sea giant's arm, breaking through the armor in an instant. Hu, Panda Jin flashed angrily and quickly withdrew his hand, thus avoiding the fate of being cut off by a single blow. Bajan Alliance. I didn't expect you to be in alliance with the Israel-Palestine pirates. At that time, it was you who bid 61 fruits in the first round of the auction. A middle-aged man in a monoka stepped forward. His clothes looked sloppy, with a cloak and hat made of straw and linen, and a pair of straw sandals under his feet. Only in his hand, he held a long sword. Long Taidao is very Jingyan, and when people see it at first glance, they will be firmly attracted. On the blade, there are lightning patterns. On the other side of the wooden bridge, Doflamingo raised his eyebrows and said secretly, "This is one of the 12 supremely sharp knives, Dao Shui Leiki." Dao Shui Leiki, like the dragon blood guagong in Qin Yang's hands, is one of the supreme Dao knives, but Dao Shui Leiki is a great sword, and dragon blood guagong is a great sword. Fufufu with Dao Shui Leiki in his hand, then this person should be the owner of Thunder Island, the Thunder Swordsman, Suoya. Doflamingo let out a series of low smiles, not intending to grab people at all, but stood in the distance and watched with interest. The so-called Thunder Island is one of the 3 starting islands of the New World, Mysteria, Rishirid, and the last Thunder Island. However, Thunder God Island has thunderstorms all year round, so the threat is very high, and most people will not log into that place. Dao Shui Leiki. At this moment, the sea giant's face changed slightly, very solemn. "You are a great swordsman, Suoya. A person like you who is dedicated to cultivation, you have to come to this muddy water. I've been invited to join the Florist Bounty Hunters League, to get paid to do errands and get some wine money." Suoya, a man of minnows, said in a hoarse voice, "You step back, you are not my opponent. I must get the blueprint in the hands of the Shemale King." "Humph, don't be too arrogant, this is about the same for Hawkeye." The sea giant shouted angrily, turned around, and slammed towards Suoya. Armament armorization. On top of his punch, the invisible hockey is wrapped around. Armorization, which is even more advanced than hardening, actually wears an invisible armor outside the body. Like observation hockey, recluse, armament, armorization, is hockey's top ability. At this moment, the sea giant's punch was knocked down, that is, the sky star came, and the huge fist, like a meteor from the sky, carried a majestic momentum and suppressed it. Suoya Vivi looked up. Under the hat, his eyes were like knives. "What can you do if you fight with me? There will be other forces coming soon, and the scene will only be more chaotic." Between words, he jumped up and rolled in the air, and at the same time, the big sword in his hand spun around in a circle. Thunder wind. Whoosh. A sword swept across, and the wind whistled, entraining the power of endless thunder and lightning, turning into a thunder wind, and heading towards the sea giant. "Then go away." The sea giant was furious, and directly used his body to resist the thunderstorm and forcibly approached the opponent. "With your sword, I can't break my armor. I'll give you one last chance, get out." The giant punched again, shaking the world. In the distance, Doflamingo murmured, "It's a fight, it's really good, here are 2 famous masters, and more people are approaching, a world war is inevitable. Suddenly, he frowned, only to see that Ivankov was about to take the opportunity to escape. "Dragon, this bastard make trouble for me. I'm quitting." Ivankov complained frantically in his heart, "There are monsters everywhere. What's the difference between me and the little white rabbit who broke into the beast circle? Oh, not the little white rabbit, but the Shemale King, hip-hop." He walked away lightly, trying to hide. However, in a flash, Doflamingo reappeared. For my sound switch is 100 meters in a blink of an eye, and you can't escape." "Damn it. The blueprint was handed over to me by the dragon, you trouble him." Hell blink. Ivankov turned and ran, not daring to stop. Behind him, Doflamingo avoided a blow, then deliberately slowed down and chased away leisurely. Don't run. Hand over the drawings. Chapter 0309-12 changes Gilgamesh. Incident: this is too deadly, it is poisonous. Don't run. Doflamingo slowly chased away. The two chased and fled, just in the direction of the Whitebeard pirates. Panda Jin and Suoya, who were fighting each other, stopped. Looking at each other, Suoya said, "How about we arrest people first, and then decide on the ownership of the drawings?" HMPH, you don't need to say it. The sea giant Panda Jin snorted coldly, and strode after him. He was 30 meters tall, and he took more than 10 meters in one step. In a flash, he was behind Ivankov. The she-male king. If you can't escape, give up your resistance and hand over the blueprint. He drank high. At the same time, Suoya withdrew his long sword, burst into high speed, and quickly approached. This time it became 3 people chasing and killing, and one of them was a giant. When he walked quickly, it was like an earthquake. The commotion here immediately attracted more attention. To the south, a mafia 1,000 meters away, after they heard the movement, they locked their target immediately. It should be over there. Let's chase after it. Immediately, everyone moved quickly. Vinsmoke family, who had previously fought with this mafia, also confirmed the location of the she-male king at this time. In addition, there is the Delgado family. They are also one of the top 10 families. Naturally, their intelligence will not lag behind. The 2 giants walked quickly, and on the shoulders of the giants stood 6 family members. "Lee, are you sure it's this way?" one of the giants asked. On its left shoulder, a cute girl gently Isho, the Vinsmoke killers and the Otis Mafia are both going in that direction, it must be there. Saying that, she suddenly sounded like something, took out the phone bug, and dialed a number. "I have to tell my father and let him come over as soon as possible. If you want to grab the blueprint in the chaos, only father can do it. Also, let the family members bring the flying boat down." Not to mention the movements of the 3 major families, farther away, more forces also noticed the abnormality. Needless to say, the Bajan Pirate Alliance has already started to act. The Bounty Hunter Alliance also got the news. More than that, Marine's Vice Admiral search team and a large number of pirate groups. The forces on the entire island were attracted to the direction of Ivankov and the others, and Ivankov happened to flee towards Whitebeard's location. Auction, on the quiet throne. Chinyong asked Nicole Robin to step back, while he closed his eyes and probed the entire island. Although he doesn't know observation hockey, the perception ability possessed by Samsung Phantom God is the same as innate. As long as you close your eyes, you can feel the breath from a long distance. In perception, he sees Doflamingo, Sea Giant, Thunder Swordsman Soya, Ivankov, Crocodile, Gecko Moria. He even saw the people of the Kaido pirates, the movements of several major families, and the movements of a large number of pirates. As for the rivalry between the Whitebeard pirates and a certain force, he has always been under his special attention. It can be said that the entire island, 9 out of 10, is under his control. With the exposure of Ivankov, under Doflamingo's intentional release, the intelligence of the drawings has been known. Everyone was motivated and gathered towards the location of the Whitebeard pirates. Only the Gecko pirates, Marco, and the blind Isho were still at a stalemate by the river. Still too slow. After a long time, Chinyong opened his eyes. He took a sip of the black tea and said, "These forces are not fools. They know that the first one to charge will be cannon fodder. All of them are waiting for others to die." More than 2 hours have passed since the auction ended and it has developed like this. Although the conflict is getting more and more intense, even if it is left alone, sooner or later there will be a big fight, but it is still a little bit worse than the melee between all parties as Chinyong imagined. "I really can't help it, it seems that I still have to add a fire. However, Doflamingo is not a problem. The members of the Dream can't make a move right now. If that's the case, let's start a new transformation. Thinking of this, Qin waved his hand, and immediately, 8 fruits appeared in front of him. Originally, he had 5, and the man in the peaked cap paid 15, which is 20, and then upgraded the 4-star blue die, which cost 12, so now there are only 8 left. Absorb it all in one breath. It's best if there is a transformation that travels through time and space. Even if it isn't, 8 fruits are used to start a new transformation, and it won't be too bad. Without hesitation, Qin easily absorbed the last 8 fruits. A huge mysterious force poured into the body and began to nourish the body and change the genes. Suddenly, Qin whole body radiated golden light. This radiance is very huge and dazzling, filling the entire room, just like the substance, as if you can reach out and touch the golden water. This bright light lasted for more than 10 minutes before it began to slowly converge. In the halo, Qin was naked and naked. When the golden light converged, he immediately condensed into an armor. Going armor. This is a light armor, but it has special power. The moment the armor appeared, Qin began to understand the message. Immediately afterwards, Qin appearance began to change. He grew a few centimeters taller, his hair color changed from black to blonde, and his black eyes turned into red pupils. Finally, all the golden light faded, and the new transformation was completely completed. This is... Qin opened his eyes. His temperament changed, from the elusiveness of Emperor Qin's time to the arrogance of looking down at all beings now. It seems that standing here is the king who is admired. At the same time, information about the new transformation was changing in his mind. 12th change, Gilgamesh King of Heroes. Star rating. Ability 1, King's Treasure. Ability 2, Going Armor. Ability 3, Going Flying Boat. Ability 4, Unlocked. Ability 5, Unlocked. It turned out to be glittering gold. Qin couldn't help but touched his face, and said in surprise, 8 is really worth it. Although it is still not an illusion that travels through time and space, Gilgamesh, the hero king, is completely worthy of the consumption of these fruits. The strength should exceed the master level. Qin felt the 3 abilities, and after a while, he couldn't help laughing. Even at 1-star level, he has the ability to treasure the king's treasure. Just use the identity of the hero king to go outside to collect fruits and try to be able to can't go straight to full star. Thinking of this, Qin walked to the window and flew out. Chapter-301-320 You're tired of living. The third update the keyboard fails. The U key and the M key are useless. I can only use the virtual keyboard while typing on the mechanical keyboard of Xiaomi. This chapter must be updated late, sorry. Go and collect the fruit first. Qin quietly left the auction venue in the form of Gilgamesh. To be honest, the phantom body of Jin Twinkle has a very powerful combat power. Of course, all of this is based on the treasure of the king. The king's treasure is a sword-shaped key that can open the Going City, a treasure house that stores all the treasures in the world. During battles, you can extravagantly throw the weapons and treasures in the treasure house all at once, in order to increase your power. Attack the enemy in an area. However, unfortunately, the treasure of the king possessed by Qin is different from the treasure of the king possessed by the real Gilgamesh. To put it simply, all the treasures of the king in Qin possession are projections. No, it can't be said that all of them are projections, at least 2 of them are real. One is the going armor. The second is the going flying boat. The difference between a projection and a real noble phantasm is its power. The projection is the product of the condensation of magic power, and its power is slightly inferior to the real one. In particular, the Deviant's Sword, or, Breaking the World Deviant's Star. The real Deviant's Sword can split the world with a single sword, but now it's just a projection. Of course, Qin doesn't know how powerful it is. He can only understand it if he actually uses it once. However, this is not a big problem. I am afraid that with 4 stars, or 5 stars, there will be genuine products. Shaking his head, Qin thoughts moved, and suddenly, a huge going aperture appeared above his head. In the halo, a going flying boat slowly sailed out. Although it is a projection, it also has advantages. As long as I have enough magic power, the noble phantasm is endless and can be copied infinitely. 100 Swords of Oath Victory in one breath. This sword is not in the collection of the treasure house, but because Qin Yang has the transformation of the King of Knights, the projection of the Sword of Vowed Victory also appeared together. Similarly, there are Sand Emperor, Going Disc, the Lich Kings, Frostmourne, Qin Emperors, Dragon Blood Kingdom Light, and so on. As long as he has it, there are corresponding projections in the treasury. No matter what, collect the fruits first. 3 stars will be upgraded to 4 stars, you need 16 inches. Thinking of this, Qin Yang jumped lightly and jumped on the going boat. He walked to the throne and sat down, then controlled the flying boat and drove away at high speed. Going flying boat, even if it is not flying at full strength, its speed is like a flash of electric light, and it passes through the number 1 area. 2 area, a land-running beast ran fast. The giant beast resembles a crocodile, with a body length of nearly 50 meters, 4 feet on the ground, and fangs on the huge mouth. On the back of the giant beast, there are hundreds of people, all of whom are pirates. The head of them is short, wearing a gentleman's top hat, holding a cigarette, and breathing clouds from his mouth. "Boss, something is flying over." Suddenly, a pirate whispered. Hearing this, the little man who was smoking couldn't help but narrowed his eyes and looked at the place. "I saw a black bird flying from the sky, but the speed of the black bird was too fast, from a tiny bit of sesame to the size of a fist." "Is it an airship?" The little man frowned and said, "Is it a flying boat, from the Delgado family?" As soon as the voice fell, the spaceship approached another distance and was clearly visible. At this moment, the crocodile giant beast at the feet of everyone suddenly opened his mouth and said, "Be careful, Captain Iba, there is someone on that airship." Everyone's faces were solemn, and they did not dare to be careless. Are there in the current Sabayati archipelago? No one dares to be careless. The ghost knows if there will be a murderer. Whoosh! Suddenly, the airship accelerated, turned into a green light, and appeared in front of everyone in an instant. It seems to ignore the rules of physics, from high speed to emergency stop, without any warning. It was as if the ship was already hovering in front of everyone. "Who is it?" Eva said loudly, "This is the Eva pirates." The giant beast stopped and was extremely alert, and he felt a dangerous aura. Everyone looked up and saw the sound of footsteps on the hovering going boat. It was a very heavy sound that only came from stepping on the ground while wearing heavy armor. Dong dong dong. Finally, a golden figure appeared on the bow of the going flying boat. "Bitch, this king gives you a chance to hand over all the devil fruits on your body." Qin Yang folded his arms and looked down at the crowd. Especially the giant beast, which resembled a crocodile, made him a little curious. Yiba frowned, took a few steps forward, and said, "Who are you? You actually call yourself the king?" "There are indeed several kings who came to the auction this time." "Which country are you the king of?" Roar! The giant beast roared, full of warnings. "Beast, call out to me, you're tired of living." Qin Yang raised his eyebrows and snapped his fingers lightly. Immediately, 6 golden circles appeared above his head, and within the circles, 6 weapons slowly stretched out. Seeing these 6 weapons, the people below couldn't help but fall into a sluggishness. "Yes, Dragon Blood Kingdom Light." "Impossible. 6 Dragon Blood Guagong, how is this possible?" "One of the supreme sharp knives, the existence of the same name as Hawkeye's Black Knife Knight. It's not good, hurry up and avoid it." Someone yelled. Everyone's heart froze, and more than 100 people dodged in unison, jumping away from the back of the giant beast. The next moment, the sword rain plummeted. Whoosh whoosh. In an instant, from within the 6 apertures, hundreds of Dragon Blood Guagong 5.3 were fired. These swords fell like raindrops, and it was difficult to dodge a wide range of attacks. The beast's pupils shrank, his heart terrified. You must know that the dragonblood Guagong is the sword that cuts the dragon, and even the scale of Arlong can be easily cut. At this moment, with so many blades thrown, the giant beast can't even dodge, and can only resist with his body. Puff puff. The sound of the blade piercing sounded, and the next moment was the scream of the giant beast. In an instant, these sword rains pierced his defenses, his skin penetrated into his body, and destroyed his internal organs. Who are you? The giant beast roared. Just after shouting, the four legs were unable to support the huge body, and collapsed with a bang, blood all over the floor. Beast, you are worthy of knowing this king's name. Chapter-301 The Power of Shattering. First update. I'm sorry, I went to pick up the car today. I thought it was fast, but I didn't get home until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But don't worry, the third shift will definitely not be less. You deserve to know my name. Qinyang stood on the bow of the going flying boat, looking down at the people below. The crocodile giant beast was covered in blood and filled with swords. In the previous moment, at least hundreds of dragon-blooded national lights shot out. Although these are projections and the product of magic condensation, their power is not much worse than the real dragon blood light. Roar. The giant beast let out a suppressed roar, looking extremely angry. He has seen arrogant people, but he has never seen such arrogant people. He simply doesn't take everything in his eyes. At this moment, the size of the giant beast has shrunk slightly, but the wounds on its body are slowly healing. Huh. Qinyang raised his eyebrows and said in surprise, awakened zone. Yes, it's not the fruit awakening, and the body size won't be so huge. HMPH, you are too arrogant. The giant beast's eyes were blood red, and it stood on the ground on all fours. There are at least 5 or 6 kings on the island now. It's not your turn to be arrogant. Between words, 15 his wounds healed a bit. Captain Iba looked solemn, and said inwardly, Genos is a giant crocodile fruit in ancient times. It is difficult to break even his skin with ordinary attacks. The man in front of him used a strange move, which severely injured him in an instant. Not easy to deal with. In normal times, Yiba wouldn't mind asking for advice, but now that the drawings are more critical, he doesn't want to waste time with the people in front of him. This king, we, the Iba pirates, don't know you. I can pretend that what happened just now didn't happen. Now, please get out of the way. Hearing this, Qinyang took one step forward and fell lightly from the going boat. Get out of the way. It's easy, hand over all the devil fruits on you. 61 fruits in the first round of auction a few hours ago. In other words, this person must have devil fruits, and there are a lot of them. Are you going to go against us? Iba's face darkened. Qinyang's aggressiveness made him, the captain, have to stand up. At this moment, the giant crocodile, which had already responded by 4 or 5 points, suddenly flew out, opened its huge mouth, and bit Qinyang. Captain, don't talk nonsense with him, I can get the key in one bite. Roar. The bloody mouth was wide open, as if it could swallow a battleship in one bite. In contrast, Qinyang's body looked very small when facing the giant mouth. Ignorance. Qinyang snorted softly, did not dodge or evade, and stood calmly in the same place, letting the opponent bite. Seeing this, the pirates on the side immediately showed a fierce look and shouted. Genos, kill him. This guy is so arrogant, he doesn't even know the reputation of the Iba pirates. Go to hell, blonde bastard. Seeing that Qinyang was about to be swallowed by the giant mouth, at this moment, golden circles of light appeared above his head. Among these apertures, chains were quickly ejected. Its speed is as fast as lightning. As the giant crocodile roared, its jaws snapped together, but its fangs stopped abruptly before it touched Qinyang's armor. What? Genos, eyes widened, with a pair of crocodile eyes full of horror. Impossible. What kind of chain is this? My bite force can crush a steel chariot in one bite. He tried his best, but couldn't bite down even an inch. The chains bound his whole body, like a chain of rules, let alone breaking free, he couldn't even move. Stop struggling, because you still want to break free from the lock of heaven. Qin laughed softly and said, this is the noble phantasm. Even if it's a projection, you can't break free of 10. What's more, you are a devil fruit person. With brute force, Kaido might be able to try to break free, but the giant crocodile in front of him is just a huge body. Of course, if it reaches a 4-star or even 5-star level, Kaido will have a hard time breaking free from the lock of the sky, even if it is a projection. As the star level increases, the power of the noble phantasm projection will also be strengthened. At 5-star level, even if it is not as good as the real one, it will not be too far behind. Since you have no intention of handing over the fruit, then I have no choice but to snatch it. Qin slapped his right palm, and suddenly golden light flashed, and a red long sword appeared. This sword is very special. It has no blade. Its body is cylindrical, and its upper steps are covered with red lines. After it appears, these lines start to rotate slowly. The name of this sword is Deviated Sword EA. Just right, I also want to try the power of this sword. Qin grinned Isho and looked directly at everyone. Heaven and earth are deviated, the star of development. See what the world looked like when it was in chaos. As soon as the voice fell, he slashed with a sword, pointing straight ahead. The next moment, a wave of magic power spread out, and in an instant, it almost enveloped the entire Sabayati archipelago. What? Iba's face was shocked, and his heart was horrified. He had a very bad premonition, and this premonition began to come true in the next second. I saw that the island was cracked, and a deep ravine was born out of thin air. It seems that there is a mite, with a pair of big hands, forcibly tearing the island in half. The pirates seemed to be stunned, staring at the sky blankly. Above the sky, there were dense clouds, the space collapsed, and pieces of space, like glass, were smashed by some 420 kinds of forces, revealing the terrifying dark world behind it. What is it? Someone yelled in horror. Just as soon as he finished calling, the ground beneath his feet suddenly collapsed, and his entire body was the weakest toward the endless abyss below. Boom boom boom. With the Sabayati archipelago as the center, a ring-shaped trench suddenly emerges, as if the space where the island is located has been stripped of the entire world. Heaven and earth collapsed, and everything, under the sword of deviation, began to return to the appearance of the beginning of the world. It is chaos, non-order, space is absent, time is disordered, and all the natural rules start to laugh. If someone with the ability of Logia is here, they will be shocked to discover that their own organization has lost control of the natural elements. Bang bang bang. The constantly shattering Sabayati archipelago alarmed everyone on the island. No matter who they are, at this moment, they all look up at the sky in Area 2. There, the concept of sky no longer exists. What appears above Area 2 is a collapsed world. After the fragmented space, the turbulent flow of time and space is extremely mysterious. Yes, who is it? Whitebeard. No, Whitebeard doesn't have that kind of power. This is the end of the world. Countless people murmured dumbly. And the aftermath of the deviant's sword began to spread gradually at this time. Chapter-301-320 I am the King of Heroes. The sky shattered, the island shattered, and the aftermath of the deviant's sword spread outward. Rao is what Qin expected, and at this moment he can't help but be surprised by the damage he has caused. However, in addition to being surprised, a strong sense of weakness came. As if an anemic person suddenly got up, he felt a little dizzy in his brain. It's so powerful. Qin hurriedly withdrew his power, and after sensing it for a while, he said, one blow actually consumed 2/3 of my magic power. Comparing its power, the magic power consumed by using the deviation sword is also terrifying. Fortunately, Samsung's Gilgamesh's magic power is strong enough, otherwise, I am afraid that one blow will have to use up his power. Thinking of this, Qin made up his mind, if this kind of terrifying big move is not necessary, it is better to use it sparingly. The lethality is too great. With a clear tone, Qin retracted the deviant's sword and raised his eyes to look forward. In front of the field of vision is a bottomless ravine. The island was torn into two pieces. The surrounding sea water should have flowed backwards, but at this time it seemed to be driven out by some kind of force, and not a drop of sea water could flow in. Ha 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 ha. Eva's face was horrified, and he gasped for breath. He grabbed a rock wall in the abyss, and this was the only way to avoid the fate of falling. But except for him, everyone fell, and he didn't know his life or death. Even the Kadri-Genos, the giant crocodile, had been swallowed by the abyss. You, who the hell are you? He twisted, staring at Qin above the abyss, his tone bitter. Who is he provoking? A character even more ruthless than Whitebeard appeared, and he wiped out his pirate group with one blow. Mortal, if you want to know my name, you are 100 years too early. Qin walked over, stood on the edge of the abyss, stared down. Now give you a chance to live, hand over the devil fruit. Devil fruit. Facing the danger of death, Yiva's brain became more flexible. At this moment, when he heard the words, devil fruit, again, his complexion changed greatly. You are a dream. Dream. Of course Qin wouldn't admit it, and snorted coldly, I do know them well, but I'm not a dreamy person. At least not now, maybe later. Stop talking nonsense and hand over the fruits. The fruit, because you shattered the island, my companion fell into the abyss, and a large part of it has already fallen together. Eva gritted his teeth and said, compared to his own life, the fruit is nothing more than what was seized by the crazy attack on the pirate group during this period. In 1 month, they attacked 6 pirate groups with the Pakistani pirates, starting with 9 fruits, plus the 4 they own. There are actually only 13 fruits. 61 pieces of fruit could be quoted because there were still 11 pirate groups under the Eva pirates, and the condition for these pirates to join the alliance was 1 piece of fruit. Therefore, the number of fruits that Eva can control is only 24, and the remaining 37 belong to the sea giant Panda Jin. However, he didn't want to tell Qin these words. I'll give you the fruit, that's all I have on me. Eva reached out and took off the package from his waist and threw it towards Qin. At the same time, his feet kicked, and the whole person seemed to touch the ball for a moment. After bouncing back and forth several times, he had already jumped up from the abyss. Qin ignored him, stretched out his hand, caught the package, opened it, and saw 7 fruits. Only this. Qin frowned and looked up at Eva, who was about to run away. You are taking a step, maybe your feet are not yours. Hearing this, Eva's body froze, and his face was very ugly. He turned around mechanically and said in a low voice, they all fell off. I only have 7 pieces on me, and the remaining 4 pieces were in the hands of several cadres, and they all fell off. That's only 11. Do you think I don't know if you dare to bid a high price of 61 at the auction? Qin looked bad. How do you know? Eva opened his mouth and thought of the other party's terrifying strength. He was afraid that at the auction, his own bid would not be able to hide the other party's bid. You misunderstood. We bid 61 pieces because of the Bajan Pirate Alliance. In addition to our Eva pirates and the giant golden pirates, there are 26 large and small pirates in the alliance. In the hands of each pirate, there are 1 fruit. Membership fee. Qin nodded, and probably understood what was going on with this alliance. Terms of combat power. This alliance may not be as good as the subversion of the 4 Emperors Alliance, but it has more members and greater power. Phantom, scan. Qin secretly said in his heart that after confirming that Eva had no devil fruit, he immediately jumped into the abyss. There are 4 fruit reactions below, which must be found. Seeing this scene, Eva turned around and ran without any hesitation. It's terrifying. Hurry up. Fortunately, I'm a fruit bomber. As long as you give me a chance, it's not a problem to run. Saying that, he squatted half squat, leaned forward, and the next moment, the whole person suddenly rushed out like a cannonball. Whoosh! In a blink of an eye, his figure had disappeared. And a few minutes after he left, a large group of people arrived. These people include pirates, bounty hunters, marine, and even 2 kings, as well as the elite troops led by the king. The vast number of people quickly gathered by the abyss, more than 4,000 people, confronting each other and being very alert. What happened here? Who is it that has such terrifying power? I'm sure it's not Whitebeard. Whitebeard is not here. I can feel that if it wasn't for this man to withdraw his power at the last moment, I'm afraid it would be Sabayati Archipelago, and it would be broken into many pieces. Instead of being torn as it is now. There's someone down there. Suddenly, someone shouted, and thousands of eyes all turned into the abyss. I saw a burst of golden light shining, and a tall and straight figure dressed in glowing armor slowly floated up. The person who appeared had blonde hair and red pupils, with a grim face, holding a few packages in his hands. From the opening of the package, you could see that it was a devil fruit. Who are you? A man wearing a crown said in a deep voice. He was the king of a kingdom in the New World. At this moment, when he saw someone appear, several guards beside him gathered around and looked at Qin Yang with great alertness. They dare not take any action, and the bottomless ravine in front of them is the strongest deterrent. Qin Yang floated above the abyss, and his eyes swept across the crowd. It's very lively. I didn't expect so many people to come so quickly. Just in time, save me searching everywhere. I'm the king of heroes, Gilgamesh. Mortals, hand over your fruits. Chapter-301-320 Join forces. I am the king of heroes, Gilgamesh. Qin Yang glanced over and said in a proud tone, Mortals, hand over your fruits. Hearing this, everyone squinted their eyes, and began to search for the name, Gilgamesh, in their minds. I haven't heard of Gilgamesh. There is no such character in the intelligence. I remember the king of heroes. There seems to be such a legend that it was a great hero who saved a country and was pushed to the throne of the king by the people. However, that was more than 100 years ago, and the man in front of him looked like only in her 20s. Anyway, don't mess with him. The most important thing now is the blueprint. Damn, the she-male king who carries the blueprint doesn't know where he went. Many people whispered and discussed, but no one knew. The middle-aged man wearing the crown said solemnly, King of heroes, which country are you the king of? You caused all this just now. Tonan said, I am Ren Sen, a member of the world government, and the king of the Ameti kingdom. Ameti kingdom. Someone was stunned, and then suddenly said, it turned out to be the king of destruction. In this world, there are more than 200 countries, but the kings of some of them are powerful, and the reputation of the king is still higher than that of the country. Such as Kamabaka Kingdom's she-male king, Ivankov. Another example is the king of destruction of the Ameti kingdom, Basin. There are also some pirate countries that are not members of the world government, and there are also strong ones. Hearing this, Qin Yang couldn't help raising his eyebrows, king of destruction. I don't care who it is, hand over the fruit. Hearing this, Ren Sen was still calm and said, King of heroes, the auction has ended, and it's too late for you to collect the fruits now. Why don't we join forces and get the blueprints first? The blueprints are in the hands of the she-male king. After I get them, I am willing to share ownership with you. Quote. Ha ha ha, bastard, are you also worthy of talking to me about joining forces? Qin Yang dismissed it. In my opinion, the blueprint of Hades you are asking for is not worth mentioning. Don't talk nonsense. You don't want to see the collapse of the world, so just take out the fruits honestly. If he wants to push Jin Twinkling to 5 stars, he needs at least 40 fruits, and now there are only 11, which is not enough to even rise to 4 stars. Ren Sen's face sank, and the guards on the left and right immediately stepped forward to block him. Since you have no intention of joining forces, King of Heroes, then I won't force it, let's go. Saying that, he resisted his anger and walked away. If it weren't for a bottomless ravine in front of him, or if the Sabayati archipelago was torn into two pieces now, he would definitely have learned the skills of the King of Heroes. I allow you to go. Qin Yang's eyes narrowed, and when he raised his hand, he was ready to teach him a lesson. But at this moment, a Marine Vice Admiral spoke loudly and said, King of Heroes, what is your relationship with Dream? This person's name is Keisha, a male, about 30 years old, with a cigar in his mouth and a big back hair. He is the Vice Admiral rank of the Marine headquarters. As far as I know, the only forces that collect devil fruits so madly are the mysterious dreams. What is your relationship with them? Him. Night King Arthur. Qin Yang's mouth was isho, his eyes turned to the other side. Of course I know. Hearing this, Keisha's complexion changed slightly. You are also a dream cadre, or even a master. You don't keep your promise. You promised not to start outside the number 1 area. Who told you that I'm a dream cadre? With a light snort, Qin Yang had lost his patience. This group of people really couldn't shed tears without seeing the coffin. Marine, you have successfully exhausted my patience, since you are unwilling to hand over the fruit. At this point, above Qin Yang's head, golden circles of light continued to appear. From within the aperture, a holy sword emerged. Oath of Victory, Durandal, Dragon's Blood, Frostmourne, Balmunch, Jovios. Any holy sword that is enough to cause a bloody storm, at this moment, burst out. Unfortunately, no one recognizes them, and they can barely recognize the 3 of them, Oath Victory, Dragon's Blood, and Frostmourne. But even so, Keisha Vice Admiral didn't change color. Frostmourne, Lord of the Earth, Sword of the Lich King. That's the Dragon Blood Kingdom Light, one of the 12 rare supreme swords. And the King of Knights. The sound of gasping for breath kept sounding, as if a beggar saw the richest king in the world. They can only recognize 3, but just 3 is enough to make people feel alarmed. On the other side of the abyss, on the shoulders of a giant, a pretty girl's eyes lit up. Many swords, each of them extraordinary. This guy, is he going to throw these swords out as throwing weapons? She was muttering in her heart, considering that this person's strength was terrifying, she wondered if she could escape. But as soon as she rolled her eyes, she suddenly said, Respected hero King Gilgamesh. I'm Delgado Ray, are you collecting fruit? Her voice was clear, and immediately caught everyone's attention. Qin Yang glanced at it. Seeing him, the little girl Vivi Isho said, We, the Delgado clan, have the devil fruit you need. Oh, are you going to take me? Of course, I can give you a fruit. Li nodded affirmatively. Our family is looking for the blueprint of Hades. If you can give us a helping hand, King of Heroes, we are willing to give you 20 fruits as a thank you gift. Just want to ask me for 20. Qin Yang dismissed it. If there was time, wouldn't it be better to grab it directly? But when he thought about it, he suddenly had a good idea. Yes, the drawings are useless to me, but since you are sincere, I will help you. Hearing this, Li and the Delgado family behind Li were all startled. I just tried to say this, I didn't expect you to agree. A top powerhouse like you shouldn't be able to experiment, right? Li blinked and said. Of course. Qin Yang was unsmiling and his face was cold. Seeing this, they suffered from the rest of the forces, and they all changed. If this monster-like powerhouse joins forces with the Delgado family, maybe the blueprint will be taken away. Thinking of this, someone immediately shouted, King of Heroes, we are willing to invite you to join us at the price of 21 fruits. No, we can take out 24. Seeing that all the forces present reacted, Keisha Vice Admiral couldn't sit still, and immediately shouted, King of Heroes, I offended just now, we Marine is willing to hire you to shoot, the fruit problem, don't worry, definitely satisfy you. Go away. Qin Yang glanced at it and spit out a word. He can help anyone, but he can't help Marine. Another phantom now, the great demon Lord of Fear is still suppressing Marine in Area 69. Of course, although it is to help, it is just a pretense, the main purpose is to let this group of people deliver the fruit obediently. Although he is not afraid of anyone, it is still very difficult to eliminate so many forces in one go. The best way is to let them consume each other, and then he reaps the benefits of the fisherman. If you want to invite me to join, first of all, send a fruit to express your sincerity. Chin-Yong crossed his chest with his hands and grinned at everyone. Shameless. Suddenly someone yelled, "This is sitting on the ground to collect money." Chapter 0314_Omniscient Almighty Star. First update tilde Someone complained that the third chapter yesterday was too watery. I can't do anything about it, I'm also very desperate. I was too busy yesterday, so I tried my best to get rid of it. If I don't write fast, I won't be able to finish it in 3 more. Also complain about the abyss below Sabayati Archipelago. I am very helpless. The abyss here refers to a very deep ditch, such as the abyss that falls into the abyss. Yesterday there was indeed a bit of water, and it is estimated that there are 10 lines in one eye. I can understand if I missed it. Close black lens bracket. Shameless. The people present were yelling in their hearts. This is the starting price, showing a little attitude of agreeing to form an alliance, so that everyone will obediently give away the devil fruit. No one is a fool, and they can react with a little thought, but even if they know, they have to jump into this big pit. King of Heroes, we are willing to give a gift of a fruit. Someone said loudly. As for the alliance, as long as you can help us get the blueprint, the reward of 30 fruits can be delivered immediately after success. Hearing this, the girl Li frowned and looked at this person. The other party is also the king of a country, but it is not a member country of the world government, and there is a pair of small white wings on the back, just like decorations. The king of Sky Island. She whispered, and then said to Chin-Yong, "Respected Hero King, our Delgado family does not have so many fruits, but we are still willing to invite you to join us at the price of 20 fruits. Li, forget it, the giant at the girl's feet whispered. This guy just wants to take advantage of this and collect devil fruits, he won't join. You don't understand. Li gritted her teeth and said, now it's not a question of inviting the other party to join or not, but not letting the other party join other forces. Even if you can't join forces with the King of Heroes, you can't let others succeed. Thinking about it carefully, it was too reckless just now. You should talk to the King of Heroes in private and invite him to join, so that it will not turn into such a result. Of course, the real reason is that this person's combat power is too terrifying. Now, outside the abyss ahead, the seawater cannot flow in, as if the laws of gravity are invalid, and it seems that some kind of powerful force is distorting the laws. After hearing her words, the giant still couldn't react. At this time, a pirate captain suddenly spoke up and said, King of Heroes, we Toronto pirates would like to give you 3 fruits. At the same time, we also feel that we are not qualified to join forces with you, so we only want to express a message by giving the fruits. Meaning, hopefully on the island, we won't be your enemy. With that said, he took a small treasure box from a cadre and threw it directly at Chin-Yong. Chin-Yong reached out and grabbed it, took it directly, opened it and glanced at it, and was suddenly shocked. Really 3 fruits? Seeing this, the rest of the forces widened their eyes one by one, and then cursed. And LT. Damn, this guy's so treacherous. Is this a show? This man is very smart. He knows that the King of Heroes can't join forces, so he gives a gift to show his favor, so that the other party will not shoot at him. Captain, do we want to send it too? After chatting in a low voice, someone quickly responded. King of Heroes, we are willing to give you a piece of fruit. We don't ask you to join us. It's just a greeting. I hope there will be opportunities for cooperation in the future. One of the captains spoke, and after speaking, he threw a fruit. Let's go. The captain turned around and left with his subordinates, very decisive, without stopping at all. Seeing this, the rest of the small and medium-sized forces also followed suit and sent a fruit to show their love. In the blink of an eye, more than 4,000 people have already left, leaving only 300 or 400 people. And Chin-Yong also received 8 fruits. This is really easy to come by. Qinyang was Isho in his heart, and at the same time a little reluctant. These people gave the fruit so decisively that he was embarrassed to grab it. Originally, he planned to let these forces compete with each other to drive up the price, and then he would take advantage of the fishermen. However, it's good, there are at least 600 or 700 fruits on the island now. If you don't rob these people, you can rob others. Now I have 8 more, plus the previous 11, there are already 19, enough to upgrade to 4 stars. Thinking of this, Qinyang raised his eyes to look at the remaining 4 forces. One is the Delgado family, the other is Marine, the other is the King of Destruction, and finally the King of a certain country in Sky Island. Seeing Qinyang, the King of a certain country on Sky Island shook his head helplessly. Since the King of Heroes has no intention of joining, then this is a welcome gift, please accept it. If you have a predestined relationship, you can come to Sky Island as a guest. Let's go. 3 more fruits. The girlie also sighed and said, King of Heroes, your hand is really helpless. However, even if the cooperation cannot be achieved, our family does not want to be your enemy. This is a gift, goodbye. The giant under her feet reluctantly gave out a fruit. But the girlie glared at him and gave out 2 more. Here are 3 more fruits. Afterwards, the King of Destruction also reluctantly handed over 3 fruits. He had a verbal conflict with the King of Heroes before, and now he refuses to hand over, fearing that a fight will occur in the next second. Let's go. When the King of Destruction took his people away, only Marine was left in front of Qinyang. Keisha Vice Admiral's face was very ugly. He took a deep breath and said, there is no one now, so I will say it directly. King of Heroes, although I do not have the authority to make the following promises, I can report to Marshal Sengoku. As long as you can help us Marine get the blueprint, and all the forces that our Marine suppresses, the devil fruits in their hands, can be given to you. Quote. The conditions are very tempting, but it's a pity that I'm not interested in your Marine's promise. Go away. Qinyang didn't bother to look at this person again, he snapped his fingers, and suddenly, in the halo above his head, a holy sword with a handle that didn't strike, swayed like raindrops. Whoosh whoosh. In an instant, a Vice Admiral team, hundreds of sailors died. Even Vice Admiral himself was seriously injured by the range attack, with a sharp blade inserted into his ribs. 0.2. You asshole. Keisha's face turned pale, and she knelt down with a bang, falling to the ground. Qinyang ignored it and turned to leave. He now has 28 fruits in his hand, enough for body and mind. Before long, Qinyang found a quiet place. It was the apex of a mangrove tree. Qinyang took out the fruit and quickly absorbed 16 of them. The huge mysterious power nourishes the whole body, and under the golden light, the information about the 12 changes is changing. 12th change, Gilgamesh. Star rating. Ability 1, King's Treasure. Ability 2, Going Armor. Ability 3, Going Flying Boat. Ability 4, Omniscient Almighty Star. After receiving the feedback, Qinyang couldn't help but stunned, and whispered to himself, it turned out to be the all-knowing and all-powerful star. Chapter-301-320 The Mystery of Emperor Qin. Second update Don't urge me, especially a big brother who pushes the pop-up window every day to urge me to update. The all-knowing and all-powerful star. Qinyang murmured softly. The new ability of the 4-star Gilgamesh appeared a bit beyond his expectations. As far as Qinyang knew, the omniscient and almighty star is a permanently activated noble phantasm, that is to say, an alternative noble phantasm that does not require liberation. Its effect is also very simple and direct, and it can see through all the truth of the opponent at a glance. However, Qinyang's omniscient and omnipotent star is slightly different from the real one. Is everything true? Qinyang turned his eyes and stared at the Yarki mangrove tree under his feet. Suddenly, information about it appeared in my mind. Alchiman mangrove. The tree is 1651 years old. The roots of the tree float on the sea surface, and the roots are intertwined to form an island. The age of a tree over 1,600 years old. How did I infer it? Qin Yang couldn't help but mutter to himself. I don't know, I just got this kind of information subconsciously. Thinking of this, Qin Yang's thoughts moved, and he separated the body illusion, and then the omniscient and almighty star naturally activated. Phantom. No intelligence whatsoever. Sure enough, this noble phantasm is not omnipotent, but... Qin Yang shook his head, retracted his body, and released his perception at the same time. This treasure has the ability to calculate beyond common sense, and it can even predict the future. Insight into the past, speculate on the future. Instant, Qin Yang sees countless future endings. Sabayati Archipelago, under the calculation of the omniscient and almighty star, has produced dozens of different futures. In these futures, fantasy is the final big winner, with one difference. Marine. There is a future where Marine suppressed all the disturbances on the island, and even got the blueprint, and in the more distant future, Marine also got the Hades battleship. No, it should be said that the world government. Why? Marine is being suppressed by the Dread Lord, what else did they have? Qin Yang couldn't help being curious, and then he continued to think. The past and the future are all known. After a full 10 minutes, Qin Yang opened his eyes and said, there is only one possibility, the world government has used the national treasure. If there is enough magic power, Qin Yang feels that he should be able to figure out what the national treasure is. Let's put this aside, Marine has to suppress, even if there is only a 1 in 10,000 chance, they can't get the blueprints. Thinking of this, Qin Yang sat down with his knees crossed and began to recover his magic power. First, it was a stray sword, and then it was the calculation of the future of the omniscient and omnipotent star. While Qin Yang Yuzai regained his magic power, the war on the island had completely broken out. Almost all the major forces are concentrated around areas 2 and 3, where the Whitebeard pirates were besieged. They were besieged by more than a dozen New World pirates, as well as 5 Old Roger-era pirates. Immortal. Shemale King followed the instructions of Dragon, and brought the blueprint into the battlefield, and his appearance attracted the rest of the forces at once. After that, the war broke out. Meanwhile, Area 69, a Marine base. The Great Demon King of Fear faced Marine's top combat power with 1 against 5, and it was true. Marshal Sengoku, Hero Garp, Great Staff Crane, Admiral Kuzan, Admiral Akainu, 5 joined forces to besiege the Great Demon King of Fear, but they could not do anything. Of course, the Big Devil couldn't help Marine, and the two sides fell into a stalemate. This is what Qin Yang is willing to see. If he wants to destroy Marine, he will let the main body come in person and let the Big Devil do it. On the one hand, he doesn't want the dream to be related, on the other hand, he naturally delays Marine's footsteps. At this moment, the Great Demon King flapped his wings and flew into the air, looking down at the 5 people below. He folded his arms and said inwardly, for the future that the omniscient and omnipotent star can see, Marine can only use the national treasure to be able to make waves. Therefore, I can't press too hard, lest the other party really take it out. Thinking of this, he laughed twice and said, Marine, who protects world peace, has only this ability, which is really disappointing. Hearing this, Sengoku's face turned ashen. Hey, Great Demon King. You are not as scary as you appear in your dreams. In reality, your combat power is at most equivalent to that of the 4 emperors. Co-captain. I don't need to beat around the bush, I'll tell you directly. The Great Demon King grinned and said, a long time ago, I was sealed by the dreamy Emperor Qin, and now I have only unlocked the 3-layer seal, so I used to be the dominant cadre. However, the power of fear you contributed is very strong. I'm afraid it won't be long before I can unlock the 4th floor, ha ha ha. He was talking nonsense. Anyway, it is enough to delay the opponent's actions. If you fight, you will not be able to tell the winner for a while. After all, it is not a sea dragon, and you can use the power of the sea. Since it is time to delay, of course, it is easiest to make up a story. After hearing his words, the 5 of them all looked awe-inspiring. Sengoku looked at Tsuru Vice Admiral, and when he saw the other side nod, he said solemnly, "Do you have a grievance between you and Dream?" "No, I have a grudge with Emperor Qin." The Great Demon King gave a strange laugh and said, "Where do you think the members of Dream come from? Why does everyone have 5 layers of seals on them?" "You know," he couldn't help asking. "No, you definitely know. Could it be the seal of Emperor Qin?" Akainu frowned. The Great Demon King glanced at him and curled his lips. "Red Dog, you have some brains. Let me tell you this, every Dream member comes from a different era and is the protagonist of the era, but it was sealed by Emperor Qin. 10,000 years ago, when I wanted to destroy the world, I was sealed by Emperor Qin at that time." Quote. 10,000 years. Kuzan murmured in shock. Years are used as the unit, and a swastika is added in front. For those present, this is a kind of fairy tale. Who the hell is Emperor Qin? Sengoku took a deep breath, suppressed the shock in his heart, and said, "Who is he? Where does he come from? What is his purpose?" A series of questions revealed his fear. The big devil laughed, and the laughter spread throughout Marine Base. "What is Emperor Qin's name? I don't know. What purpose does he have? I can't tell you. As for where he came from." Speaking of which, the Great Demon King stretched out his index finger and pointed to the sky. "Sky Island." Garp was stunned. "Sky Island." The Great Demon King looked at him with contempt and said coldly, "I mean, his existence itself is beyond this dimension. Where do you think it came from?" Pause. He sneered again. "With your mortal wisdom, don't try to speculate on the origin of the god. The mystery of Emperor Qin, is it possible that you can guess?" Chapter 0316_Hades Rayleigh. The mystery of Emperor Qin, how can you make guesses? The Great Demon King spoke slightly mockingly. Although it is a temporary story, it still has to be made up to a certain extent. As for where Emperor Qin came from, such a crucial question is of course left to the other party to guess. Hearing this, Akainu's face looked extremely ugly, and he immediately snorted, "Great Demon King. Listening to your tone, it doesn't seem like I have a grudge with Emperor Qin. I can only believe what you say. Do you believe it or not?" The Great Demon King pouted, "But this is true, he just made up stories casually." "Since you have a grudge with Emperor Qin, why don't you even say where he came from?" Akainu pressed step by step and said. "Stupid question." The Great Demon King glanced at him and couldn't help shaking his head. "Why can't I say it? The reason is very simple, that's because Emperor Qin is very strong. I can't mention his name or where he came from. Once I mention it, he will immediately perceive it. Here, Emperor Qin is too strong." "How strong is too strong?" Marines looked at each other, but shook their heads secretly, not even mentioning their names. "Is this possible?" Having said that, there are only a handful of times that Emperor Qin took action. Once he killed the Big Mom pirate group, and once was the Holy Land capturing Gorosei, 5 elders. This guy has a strong fear of Emperor Qin. Sengoku whispered. "Even if you have grievances with him, you don't dare to talk casually." In response, Tsuru Vice Admiral shook his head and said, "Don't be gullible, have you forgotten about the Lich King?" "I know, I'll try it out." Sengoku nodded and said loudly, "Great Demon King, since you have grievances with Emperor Qin, why don't we join forces to destroy him?" "Ha ha ha, boring temptation, you guys, you can't even beat me, and you still want to destroy Emperor Qin. Sengoku, your brain isn't broken, so just put away this kind of low-level temptation." The Great Demon King couldn't help laughing, and said, "How strong is Emperor Qin? Let me give you an example. The 10 masters start at the same time, and they can hold up under Emperor Qin for 10 minutes. Hearing this, Sengoku's expression changed, but he didn't want to believe it. Since he is so strong, why does he allow you to move freely and not listen to fantasy? Ha ha ha, of course it's because he doesn't have time. The Great Demon King replied subconsciously, and then reacted suddenly, staring at Marine and others with bad eyes. No, what? Sengoku narrowed his eyes and looked at Tsuru Vice Admiral. The great staff officer. He pondered and said, not enough, or not much. It should be the latter, or both. How? Sengoku asked. If what he said is true, then it's not the first time that dreams have appeared, maybe hundreds of years ago, or even thousands of years ago. Tsuru Vice Admiral whispered. The reason for the judgment is that the great demon king previously saying, every dream member is from a different era. So it is. If this is the case, it means that their dreams will disappear again sooner or later. The specific reason is unknown, but this is judged according to what the great demon king said, there is not much time. Degree. He frowned, not analyzing with certainty. This organization is too mysterious, I can only judge based on the existing information. Moreover, all this is based on the premise that the great demon king did not lie. It's half the credibility. Sengoku thought for a while, then said, the last sentence is obviously missed. If this is also a disguise, then his acting skills are realistic enough. The two talked and analyzed in a low voice, but for some reason, they breathed a sigh of relief in their hearts. This breath of relief, even they themselves did not notice. But the great demon king noticed it. He can absorb fear and is very sensitive to people's emotional states, so he can find out. Because Emperor Qin doesn't have much time, the dream will disappear sooner or later, so you can breathe a sigh of relief. The great demon king of fear sneered inwardly, he was just pretending to fool this group of people. Of course, the goal was barely achieved. When the world government learns this news, it will definitely not take out the national treasure to deal with the dream. The reason is very simple, because in their opinion, as long as they wait, maybe the dream will disappear, and they don't need to take out the king to break the net. There is no national treasure, everything about Sabayati archipelago will be under Qin Yang's control. However, I didn't lie to you. When this incident is over, the dream will indeed be low-key, but, at that time, the revolutionary army came on stage, and you have a headache, ha ha ha. He laughed twice in his heart, but the great demon king's face was still indifferent. HMPH, this is the end of the chat. I have said a lot about what you want to hear. Now, it's your turn. Contribute your fear. With a cold snort, the great demon king stretched out his right palm, the scale of fear. Call. The gloomy wind whistled and swept away. Sengoku were shaken a little, and their fear was rapidly being amplified, and with the intensity of fear, the five people's reaction, speed, strength, perception, etc., were all weakened by a large margin. On the contrary, the great demon king of fear is absorbing the power of fear, and his strength has risen a lot. When one side's combat power drops, the other side increases, and the balance is quietly broken. Ha ha ha, as expected of a senior marine, with top combat power, these fears are really delicious. In the laughter, the great demon king of fear changed his palms into claws and grasped the void. Immediately, two shadow spheres condensed in the palm of his hand. Fear bomb. As soon as the voice fell, the two black spheres suddenly flew down and hit the five people. At the same time, the riverside of the number 2 area. Gecko Sluki knelt down on one knee, and a long sword mark appeared in his mouth. He covered his mouth, gasping for breath, damn blind man. Cough, cough. As he spoke, he coughed again and vomited blood. Think Logia can do whatever she wants. Isho stepped closer and murmured, hand over the blueprints, you can't escape. That is something that brings disaster and should be destroyed. Seeing this, the man in the peaked cap stepped back subconsciously, with a gloomy expression on his face. Gecko pirates, your captains are seriously injured, why don't you do anything? Hearing this, the pirates did not reply, but rolled their eyes and fell forward. After a few thuds, in an instant, only one cadre of pirates was still standing several dozen meters away. What? The peaked cap secretly changed his face, and said in horror, who is it? This is a conqueror, such a powerful conqueror, when? He turned around suddenly, and saw a sloppy figure walking on the other side of the shouting. The man had round eyes, white hair, and a sword wound at the corner of his eyes. He stepped on wooden shoes, and in a single leap, he shouted across the field several dozen meters wide. "It's really a headache. Just after going out for half a month, the island has become like this." The visitor scratched his head helplessly and looked around. "Dream, this group of people, playing so much this time, it's really a headache." Seeing this person, Marco, who was still under the control of the shadow demon, couldn't help shrinking his pupils. Pluto Rayleigh. On the other side, outside the sea. A big red pirate ship is slowly passing through the wreckage of 7 or 8 marine battleships. "Lord Empress, I wonder what happened to Lord Rayleigh." "Idiot, these warships look like they've just been wrecked. Apparently Rayleigh did it. However, there are too many, and the telescope can see at least hundreds of warships. Marine is blocking the Sabayati archipelago." On the deck, a group of women couldn't help chatting. At the bow of the ship, Empress Boya Hancock stood quietly. Her eyes were far away, looking into the depths of the island. "Emperor Qin Hailong HMPH. Stupid dragon, today I have to see if you are alone." Chapter 0317-Red Earl. 9 snakes crossed the marine blockade and entered the offshore waters of the Sabayati archipelago. However, near the sea, a shocking scene appeared. "This is what?" Amanda said incredulously, her eyes widening. "I saw the offshore sea ahead, with the island as the center, forming a ring fault. It seems that the entire island has been stripped away, the seawater cannot flow inward, and there is a bottomless abyss between it and the island. What kind of power can do this kind of thing?" A female pirate couldn't help sighing. "Is it the patron saint? That stupid dragon?" The female emperor frowned, and she also agreed with this judgment in her heart. Hailong, as the master of the ocean, can indeed do such a thing. "Stop the boat." Thinking of this, the empress shouted softly, "You stay here," and the concubine goes in alone. There is a circular moat, and ships can no longer approach. The cut is nearly 100 meters wide, and it is difficult for ordinary people to cross. "My lady empress! Sister, sister!" a group of female pirates hurriedly exclaimed, but the queen didn't stop, and in a single leap, she took off lightly in a 760-degree posture and flew into the air. At the same time that the empress landed on the island, Gilgamesh, the king of heroes, suddenly opened his eyes. "Huh!" With a light sigh, Qin Yang couldn't help but startled. This girl is really persevering, and she's here again. Thinking of this, Qin Yang couldn't help but calculate, the all-knowing and all-powerful star. Bringing the appearance of the empress into the complicated situation of Sabayati archipelago, and considering Hailong and Emperor Qin at the same time, a moment later, Qin Yang's face showed a strange look. "I have a good relationship with her, the future I can see, and even someone who likes me. The empress will like Shanghai Dragon in various futures, to be precise, the Qin Emperor." This is the calculation of the all-knowing and all-powerful star, but Qin Yang feels that this is not necessarily reliable. Empress, dare to use the emperor's name. I didn't trouble you. I don't want to meet a woman, so you can come to me on your own initiative." Shaking his head, Qin Yang slowly got up, and with a thought, the body of Emperor Qin appeared immediately. The next moment, Emperor Qin disappeared and walked in the direction of the empress. The magic power has recovered by 4 or 5 points. Next. Qin Yang jumped lightly and jumped off the top of the Alchiman mangrove tree. At the same time as he fell, a golden light circle appeared below, and a going flying boat appeared in the circle. With a swoosh, the going flying boat caught Qin Yang, turned into a green light, and hurried toward the battlefield. Sabayati Archipelago, the boundary of areas 2 and 3. This is a square, and it is in chaos at the moment. The Whitebeard pirates are besieged by more than a dozen pirates, and the war between the two sides has entered a fever. In addition, Ivankov's intrusion also caused the other forces to compete for the blueprints in their hands. This is not a war between one party and the other, but a multi-party melee where everyone is the enemy except one's own. The sound of killing was loud, swords danced wildly, and every minute and every second, someone died. However, in the midst of this chaos, a green light suddenly approached and descended over the square. Many people looked up and were shocked. That green light simply ignored the laws of physics, and it was completed in an instant from high speed to stillness. Flying boat. The Delgado family. No, the flying boat is not like this. Who is it? King of Heroes. Someone recognized it, and his expression immediately became solemn. Even Whitebeard and the 5 immortals from Roger's era are now in the grips of battle, and they are focused on investigating. Huh, what kind of spaceship is this? Said the old man in the hat, in surprise. Have you ignored the laws of nature? Who is on it? Another strange character. Whitebeard laughed. Goo la la la, it looks like it's not your reinforcements. HMPH, it's not your helper either. Isho said, Whitebeard, you're not good anymore. Compared to your peak period, you can't even beat the 5 of us now. Going flying boat, Chinyong sat on the throne with one hand on his cheek and Erlang's legs crossed, quietly watching the melee below. The square below is the main battlefield. Tens of thousands of people are fighting in melee, and in the outside area, there are more people. The war is spreading without stopping. Chinyong glanced at him and saw the she-male King Ivankov, who was still running around, and Doflamingo, who was hiding in the battlefield and paddling everywhere. At a glance, there are some famous people. Shaking his head, Chinyong turned to look in Whitebeard's direction. At the same time, the going spaceship slowly approached and floated to the top of the other party's head. Who are you? The hag looked defensive. This is what I want to ask. Chinyong was too lazy to get up and said bluntly, who are the 5 of you who are immortal? I know you, mother-in-law. I am more curious about the other 4 old men. Boy, your tone is very arrogant. The old man in the bucket hat snorted coldly. When the old man was in the New World, you were still in the womb. He. Chinyong laughed softly, snapped his fingers, and snapped his fingers. Immediately, streaks of golden light circles appeared around the hull of the flying air. This is hiding. The ghost mother-in-law froze and shouted quickly. The 5 old immortals reacted extremely quickly and spread out all at once. At the same time, the rain-like attack fell down. Boom 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 boom. It took half a minute for these attacks to dissipate, and the ground at this time had become riddled with holes. Old man in the bucket hat shed a drop of cold sweat and secretly said in his heart, what an intensive attack, there are probably dozens of swords that fall in 1 second. If it is not flashing fast, I can only pray that my armament can resist such a dense attack. Strange move. Whitebeard held the Dogwan knife, looked up at Chinyong, and said, Armored boy, who are you? Armored boy. Chinyong raised his eyebrows and still sat firmly. Whitebeard, I am the king of heroes, Gilgamesh. Pause, he said, seeing that you look like you are about to die, why don't you make a deal with me? Take out 50 fruits, and I will help you solve these 5 immortals. Gu la la la, I am Whitebeard. Whitebeard laughed. No help is needed, king of heroes, you can step aside. Really? Chinyong looked at a place above the sky and said, if I told you that there is still one person hiding, how can you still be so confident? What? Whitebeard's eyes narrowed, and observation hockey suddenly spread. Sure enough, somewhere in the sky, a unique aura was perceived. Tisk, it was exposed. In midair, a figure suddenly appeared, and then jumped down. He was wearing a red cape, and his face was pale, like a vampire. Red Earl. Red the Aloof. Redfield. The 5 immortals exclaimed in unison. You old monster, you're not dead yet. Chapter 0318_Immortal Vampire. There are so many people complaining about my water, so I am thinking seriously about how to write. The update is slow, I can only say sorry. You old monster, Tilda, you're not dead yet. Law's face was solemn, and she stared at the person who came. Redfield, in their time, was more famous than Whitebeard, and only one person could rival the entire Whitebeard pirates. There is no doubt that its strength has reached the level of 4 emperors. At this moment, he descended from the sky, leaning on an umbrella-shaped crutch in his hand, and the end of the crutch, like the wings of a bat, stretched out to the sides. "Long time no see, Whitebeard." Redfield laughed softly and stood in the middle of the battlefield. "I didn't expect that in a blink of an eye. Roger was executed, and you became the strongest man in the world, which is ridiculous." "What are you doing here?" Whitebeard said in a low voice, looking directly at each other. "A person like you should not be interested in Hades' drawings." "I'm just here to see if you're dead. Find someone by the way." Speaking of this, Redfield suddenly raised his head and looked at Qin Yang on the going boat. "King of Heroes, I've never heard of your name, but you are powerful and strange, so I think you should be a dreamer, isn't it?" He. Qin Yang got up from the throne and walked to the bow of the flying boat, looking down with calm eyes. Omniscient Almighty Star. Patrick Redfield, 59, Zone Mythical Bato no Mi Model, Vampire. Right. Hearing this, Redfield's eyes narrowed, and after a while, he grinned. "That's right. Thanks to your dreams, I escaped from the 6-story prison. I wanted to find you and thank you, but after I came out, I felt that the world so much has changed." Quote. After a pause, he looked at Whitebeard again. "The big pirates who dominated the New World at the time have all begun to grow old, and only Whitebeard still maintains a huge reputation. For example, you, Hag." He looked at the 5 immortals again. He knew the identities of these 5 people, and they had all played against each other before, and they were all defeated by his men. The ghost mother-in-law, whose real name is unknown, was the world-famous female pirate with a bounty of 1.3 billion, the highest bounty among women. The old man with bucket hats was called the Sun King, more than 10 years ago, but no one is his opponent under the sun. Of course, this is an exaggeration, but the bounty is 1.48 billion. In addition to these 2 people, the other 3 old men are also quite imposing. The ghost mother-in-law, the Sun King, the Sea Knight, the White Horse, and the last cursed man. How powerful were these 5 people back then? However, time has changed. No matter how powerful people are, they can't resist birth, old age, sickness and death, and can't resist the power of aging. C.G. Redfield laughed and said, "Whitebeard, you are the same. You are getting old, and your strength is starting to decline. You can feel it yourself. Strength, energy, combat power, everything starts to decline, and it will not stop. What do you want to say?" The old man with a hat, the Sun King of that year, couldn't help humming. "So you are such a nonsense person. You want to say, you are still young. Stop laughing." "Yes, I'm still young. No, to be precise, I have regained my youth." Redfield chuckled. "I was in prison and I could feel my strength dwindling every day, so the first thing I did when I got out was to find a way to get back to my youth. No, recovery is not enough. I need a long time. Long life. So found Bato no Mi Model, Vampire." Qin Yang's tone was indifferent, as if watching a clown performing. "Yes. As far as I know, there are only 5 fruit abilities that can give people eternal life," Redfield said solemnly. 1. The fruit of life. 2. The fruit of time. 3. The immortal surgery of the fruit of surgery. 4. The fruit of immortality. And 5. Bato no Mi Model, Vampire. Having said that, suddenly, from the chaotic battlefield, a figure approached rapidly. The figure was suddenly shrouded and covered with blood, and it drilled into the ground. And in the next moment, it began to emerge in front of Redfield. A cloud of blood emerged from the ground, and then the blood faded away, revealing the figure inside. Of course, Qin Yang knew this person. One of the 3 great pirate groups in the Chaotic Sea area, the captain of the Lance Pirates, the blood and blood fruit ability person, Lance. "Lord Count." Lance got down on one knee and spoke respectfully. "I've got eternal life," Redfield murmured softly, leaning down and biting Lance's arm. Then, amazing changes took place. The Scarlet Earl is recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. His muscles aged because of age are regaining the strength of his youth. His hair is turning black, wrinkles are disappearing, and all the vitality is rapidly increasing. Black hair appeared on his arms, long fingernails grew out of his 5 fingers, and his ears were sharpened like bats. I am an immortal vampire. As soon as the voice fell, his figure poofed, scattered into a bloody mass, and disappeared instantly. What? The ghost mother was taken aback and had a bad premonition. But the next moment, her complexion changed, and a powerful palm grabbed her neck firmly and lifted it up. Granny, Redfield grinned, did you see it? This is the power of youth. Ha ha ha, donate the rest of your life too. A strange red light flickered from his palm, and then, the old and loose skin of the ghost granny continued to collapse at a speed visible to the naked eye. The wrinkles are getting deeper and deeper, and the eyes are gradually dull, as if all of a sudden, she has turned from her 70s to her 90s. Her teeth fell out. Look, no one in the world can resist the power of aging. I am the only eternal being. Redfield shouted. But at this moment, above the sky, a golden circle of light appeared. Within its aperture, a going spear slowly emerged, and then swish. A flash of gold and a puff, the going spear pierced Redfield's chest in an instant. It penetrated through its back and escaped from its chest. Going-colored spear, dripping with blood, exudes a chilling air. You are the only eternal life. Qinyang stood in front of the airship with a proud look, then what am I? A little vampire, dare to speak out in front of me, you want to die. Chapter 0319-Obscene Kazaru. How dare a little vampire dare to speak out? Qinyang snorted coldly, his attitude was arrogant, and he was full of arrogance. Lord Count. Lance was stunned and shouted quickly. Redfield raised his hand and stopped the opponent from coming forward. He threw the ghost mother aside, and then held the going leader in front of him. Cough cough. Although life can be eternal, pain still exists. Hero King, I didn't expect you to sneak attack. Violently pulled Chong Cheng out. Puff. Shang, in crazy pen shui. Lord Count. Lance's expression changed slightly, and he grabbed and drew with his backhand. In an instant, 3 streams of blood flowed out from under the ground, like a living creature, and flew towards the Scarlet Earl on his own initiative. Seeing this, Redfield opened his mouth and took a breath, and immediately swallowed the 3 streams of blood. The next moment, the trauma he had suffered before was recovering quickly and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Huh. Whitebeard's eyes narrowed, and he secretly said in his heart, mythical. It can absorb the blood of others to accelerate the aging of the other party, and it can also absorb blood to restore its own injuries. He looked at each other, observing. Qinyang said, Little bat, do you think you can fully recover by sucking blood? Look at your internal organs for yourself. Look at your internal organs, this is just an analogy, you can't really see it. Redfield felt it a little, and Vivi's expression changed. Wow, cough. He vomited blood, and his already pale face became even paler. What did you do? The Long Cheng just now is called Destiny, and its main power is the sure kill target. After it penetrates you, part of your internal organs will be destroyed. This is the damage of fate. You suck the entire sea. Blood, it will not recover. Quote. Qinyang hugged Shang in both hands and looked at him playfully. Kneel down and kowtow, I can forgive you for speaking nonsense in front of me. Having said that, in fact, Qinyang deliberately exaggerated. Recovery, of course, can recover, but don't want to recover for a short time. HMPH, what a condescending, arrogant fellow. Redfield took a deep breath and stood up slowly. Are you dreaming, or all people like you? First, correct a few of your mistakes. Qinyang said unhurriedly. First, I know Dream, much more than you, but I am not a member of Dream. Second, I am the king of heroes, the greatest king, so I can't be arrogant, so what? Can you be a king? The king, ha ha ha, interesting person Q equals. Redfield laughed, but the laughter suddenly stopped and turned gloomy. I can't pretend that the shot just now didn't happen. As he said that, with a puff, he scattered into endless bloodstains. Juan. Seeing this, several old immortals frowned, and observation hockey immediately released, but could not perceive the existence of the other party. What kind of movement is this? It's not a matter of speed, it's gone. The breath has completely disappeared. Look at the ghost granny first. Don't die. Taking this opportunity, the four old men acted quickly and rescued the ghost mother-in-law. At the same time, on the going flying boat, behind where Qin Yang stood, a drop of blood began to condense and turn into a ball. From this mass of blood red, a big black hand suddenly stretched out. Taste the power of decline. Qin Yang didn't dodge or evade, as if he didn't notice it. But at this moment, Whitebeard below, suddenly punched. Boom. There were fine cracks in the space, and then this vibrational force, along the air, was suddenly transmitted to Qin Yang's back. Puff. Just after condensing half of his body, Redfield was punched in the air and shattered. Whitebeard, since when did you start to meddle? The sound came from everywhere, and it was hard to grasp where it was. Goo la la la, I just don't want to see you being blinded by power. Whitebeard burst out laughing and said proudly, You've fallen, Pat. Don't call me by that name. As if provoked, the Scarlet Earl suddenly appeared. He condensed directly in front of Whitebeard and slammed the opponent with a punch. You are already old, how can you beat the young me? Then try it. Whitebeard did his part and punched him. Boom. Two Conqueror Hockeys instantly set off a strong hurricane. Within a radius of several hundred meters, anyone with a weaker strength would immediately be blown away. The Battle of the Four Emperors has begun. Someone exclaimed, Retreat. Some people retreat, but Qin Yang will not retreat. He was still standing in front of the flying boat, looking at each other coldly, when I don't exist. The lock of the sky. Whoosh. Within the circles of light circles, a chain of chains flew out. It was extremely fast. It circled 6 times around the two people in the fight, and then suddenly tightened. Both Whitebeard and Redfield froze. They can feel that these chains are dangerous. This is the fighting instinct accumulated over the years of fighting. Therefore, at the moment when they were about to be bound, the two of them burst out with a hockey. Armorization. I saw an invisible armor suddenly worn on the body, and the lock of the sky was blocked by these invisible armors before binding the body. Armament is very strong, but how many seconds can it last? Qin Yang was slow and slow, full of leeway. As his voice fell, the lock of the sky began to gradually tighten, and every second, the strength increased by 1 point. Redfield's eyes twitched, and he secretly said, It's all weird abilities. What kind of power is it? He is not afraid of the lock of the sky, he has a way to escape. In contrast, he is more concerned about the ability of the King of Heroes. And Whitebeard, who is also true, was bound by the chain. He broke free with brute force, and tightened the chain, as if it would break at any time. But this was just the beginning. As time went on, the chain became stronger and stronger, and even Whitebeard felt a little uneasy. Well done, King of Heroes, you have done a great job. At this moment, a loud shout came, and the next moment, above the sky, a golden sun flashed. The radiant rays of light, the golden sun even overshadowed the real scorching sun, and he was suspended in the air, unfolding his own power of light to the limit. Pirates, you have given too much time to prepare, accept a just trial. In an instant, the world turned into golden light. Everyone seemed to have lost their eyesight, and after 3 seconds, the golden light flowed backwards and condensed back to a point in the sky. It was a little golden light, like the light of the beginning of the world. Super 8, Foot Mirror Guyu. The cold voice came, and then, the rain of light in the shape of a large fan suddenly swayed down. Boom boom boom. In an instant, the entire battlefield was shrouded in this round of attacks. Chapter 0320 _ all parties appear. The first update tilde the last chapter is wrong, it is Bakichang, not Bakajing. Super Yasukani no Magatama. Over the heads of countless people, a huge golden cross star shone brightly. The baptism of light bombs poured down like rain, presenting a large fan-shaped area, covering almost the entire battlefield. Boom 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 boom. In an instant, countless screams sounded, and the number of such intensive light bomb attacks hit hundreds in an instant. Seeing this, Redfield couldn't help but swept towards Qin Yang and said, "King of Heroes, I didn't expect you and Marine to be together." Earlier Kizaru said, "You did a great job, you have done a great job," everyone heard it clearly. The King of Heroes bound Whitebeard and him with chains, and then Kizaru immediately appeared and began to harvest the battlefield, and with Kizaru's words, anyone would come to this conclusion. In this regard, Qin Yang's face was calm. "It's really wretched, deliberately confusing people and dirtying my hands. The omniscient and omnipotent star knows everything, and he knows that Marine will do it sooner or later, but Kizaru came earlier than expected." Looking at a piece of light bullets pouring towards this side, immediately, the 15-going armor outside Qin Yang's body released its magic power, forming a defensive barrier. This is the ability that comes with the armor. It is immune to elemental attacks. Although it can't be ignored 100%, it releases a layer of enchantment. Kizaru's attack is almost like scratching an itch. However, at this moment, a large blue bird flew at high speed from a distance. In the chirping sound, the big bird, carrying a blue flame, suddenly flew in front of the golden cross star, attacking all the light bombs and blocking them. Kizaru, quote. Phoenix Marco shouted angrily, spread his wings, got close to Kizaru, and ate all the attacks. Every light bullet hit, blasting his body, and the cyan undead fire would recover immediately. The two sides suddenly fell into a stalemate. "Marco," Kizaru frowned, his tone unkind. Suddenly, his light faded and he stopped for a while. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared on Marco's side, raising his right fist and hitting the opponent's face fiercely. "Don't get in the way." With a scolding, the fist slammed down. Boom. Unpredictable, Marco was punched and bleed, and the whole person fell like a shooting star with a swoosh. It was only then that everyone could see the person who shot, Moxigan with a head, beard, and wearing a coat of justice. Former Marshal Marine Kong Sora. Whitebeard's eyes narrowed slightly. "I didn't expect even the commander-in-chief of the army to come. It's so big, I'm not the only one here." Kong empty stepped on the void, and with a step of W power, suddenly swooped down. His eyes locked on Redfield's face and he said solemnly, "Long time no see, Pat." Ha ha ha, I'm glad to see your stupid face again." Redfield couldn't help laughing, wiping blood from his body as he laughed. These dozens of blood flows swirled around, quickly breaking away from the shackles of the heavenly chain and heading towards Kong. What did the defeated generals of the year do? Redfield suddenly condensed his figure and punched him suddenly. His punch carries the majestic haki, armament, conqueror. The face of this blow, Kong was not at all timid, but instead showed his fighting spirit, concentrated his shot, and punched aggressively. Boom. As if there was a thunderclap on the ground, the entire sky darkened, and after a full 3 seconds of silence, the aftermath suddenly spread. Along with the lightning and shock, the gust of wind swept away, and the collision of the two conqueror haki instantly turned into an indiscriminate attack. Immediately, a large number of pirates could not bear it, and were directly shocked and unconscious. "It's great that you still have this kind of power, I can finally avenge my defeat." Kong grinned at the corners of his mouth, closed his right fist, and suddenly hit his left fist. At this moment, his bones seemed to have turned into steel, becoming extremely hard and difficult to destroy. However, at this moment, a sword light seemed to swept across from a distance. This sword chi traverses the battlefield, cuts the earth, and divides the place in two. Redfield and Kong changed color at the same time, and then both dodged backwards. Whoosh! The sword light flashed, just passing through the middle of them, leaving behind a stern sword force, shocking people's hearts. If you keep fighting like this, Sabayati Archipelago is really over. The old man just wants to live in peace here. You are going to tear down my home. The person who came was holding a long sword, not a famous sword, but a weapon that could be seen everywhere. He walked on wooden shoes and came with a rattling sound. Pluto Rayleigh, Kong Kong tutted, why are you here to join in the fun? You are hiding in the Sabayati Archipelago. Our government has always known about it, but we just don't care about you. Ha ha ha, then thank you for pretending you don't know. Rayleigh chuckled twice, glancing from side to side. With the appearance of the top masters one after another, the battlefield at this moment has fallen into silence, and everyone has stopped. You are fighting like this for the blueprints. Rayleigh spoke suddenly, his left hand holding a thick stack. Pluto does exist, not only Pluto, Neptune, and Heavenly King. They all exist. Roger knew their whereabouts back then. But Pluto's drawings are meaningless. The technology to build Pluto has long since been lost, even if it took more than 10 years. After decades, Pluto has been built, and you can't start it. After a pause, he shook his head with a smile and said, to control Pluto, you need a ship spirit. The reason why Pluto has the power to destroy an island with one shot is because the Pluto, who lives on Pluto's battleship the Spirit, has great power. His words were not in a hurry, but his voice was full of energy and resounding, and it spread throughout the battlefield. Everyone was stunned, dumbfounded by the news. The spirit of Hades. The spirit of the Pluto battleship, this kind of thing, is it true? The shipbuilding technology has been lost, that is to say, even if you get the blueprints, you can't find a shipbuilder who can build it. For a time, countless people were in a trance and couldn't accept it. They fight to death here, and in the end it's just the result of this empty joy. Hearing this, Qin Yang couldn't help but raised his eyebrows, made some calculations in his heart, and nodded immediately. The real possibility is more than 80%, that is to say, the ship spirit is real, whether it can be built or not, I have reservations. At this time, he remembered the conversation with the Empress on the 9 snakes, and also talked about the ship spirit. Thinking of this, Qin Yang suddenly smiled. Ha 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 ha, stupid human beings, the power you pray for and long for is not worth mentioning in my opinion. However, the battleship exists somewhere in the world, and people who know where it sleeps. Having said that, Qin Yang looked at Rayleigh and said playfully, Pluto Rayleigh, if you say you don't know now, it's too late. Hearing this, Rayleigh's face darkened. He suddenly felt a little regretful. Why did he come to this muddy water, and now he has become a public enemy by his full name? Wait, I really don't know.